Chapter 16:24. This time, the Xingyi Heavenly Emperor didn't act rashly. After all, he had failed and his strength hadn't improved. If he tried to Tao integration again, the result would be the same. Most importantly, even though he hadn't reached the Tao transformation, he had used up all his trump cards during his last Tao integration attempt. He had also owed a favor to a senior who had succeeded in Tao integration. If he failed this time, he would definitely not help again. At that time, only death would await him. As such, he had to be fully prepared before he reached the Tao integration stage. Thus, he wanted to increase his strength first. However, his cultivation base would already be at the peak Emperor's Venerable Realm by then, so it wouldn't be easy for him to improve further. Otherwise, he wouldn't have thought of Tao integration to increase his strength. After thinking about it, the only way was to work on the origin great paths of all realms. Thus, he thought of an idea. He would first choose a great path that was weaker than the elephant great path but still useful to him. He would first extract a portion of the origin law and integrate it into his body. After a lot of searching, he finally chose the amplification origin law. If he succeeded, it would be equivalent to having the experience of Tao integration in advance and giving him a chance to adapt. In the future, when he tried to Tao integration with the elephant great path, he would definitely get twice the results with half the effort. Moreover, after integrating with this origin law, he could also increase his combat power. After all, the amplification law, as its name suggested, increased combat power. If he became stronger, the danger of the integration would naturally decrease. Either the east wind prevailed over the west wind, or the west wind prevailed over the east wind. Double insurance. However, he also knew that although this origin law was only a minor origin law, it couldn't be underestimated. Although it wasn't as dangerous as Tao integration, it was still very dangerous. After all, if someone tried to extract a portion of the origin law from his body, he would definitely destroy that person's soul. As such, he had specifically asked the godly fortune teller, the Venerable Emperor, to help him calculate the result. In the end, the answer he got was that it would be a narrow escape from death. It was an opportunity in a crisis. The final result was exactly the same as the divine divination Venerable Emperor had predicted. He didn't know if his repeated provocations had angered the Great Path, or if he had cut off the Great Path and injured the origin law, causing a backlash from the Great Path, or if there was some other reason. In any case, although the Xingyi Venerable Emperor had successfully extracted the amplification law, he had also been seriously injured by the Great Path's backlash. That was not all, but the most unfortunate thing was that he had angered the Great Tao, causing the heavens to hate him and the earth to hate him. Moreover, he was heavily injured, causing his luck to drop to a critical point. As the saying went, when the heavens and earth come and go, the hero will not be free. Fortune never came in pairs, and misfortune never came alone. At this critical juncture, a former nemesis came knocking on his door. Both sides exchanged blows. The Xingyi Martial Emperor was naturally not a match for his opponent. He had risked his life to severely injure his opponent, but he had also reached his limit. If there were no accidents, the one to survive would definitely be his opponent. Coincidentally, the Dao Sex Patriarch had rushed over at this time, so the Dao Sex Patriarch didn't have time to think. He was afraid that the Dao Sex Patriarch would take advantage of the situation. In the end, the Dao Sex Patriarch didn't even have time to collect the origin law. He had only collected his body and treasures, but he didn't want the Xingyi Venerable Emperor to seize the opportunity and take a part of his primordial spirit into the amplification law. Unfortunately, even though he had fought for a chance to live, he didn't dare to act rashly because he wasn't safe now. Falling into the hands of the Dao Sex Patriarch was better than falling into the hands of his archenemy. However, he was also worried that once the Dao Sex Patriarch refined the amplification law, he would definitely discover him. Once the Dao Sex Patriarch discovered him, he couldn't guarantee that he wouldn't be killed. However, there was no other way, so he could only take it one step at a time. Therefore, in order to prevent the Dao Sex Patriarch from discovering him, he could only delay by sleeping. Sure enough, the Dao Sex Patriarch had been careless and hadn't discovered him. Extreme misfortune turned to joy. Soon after, the Dao Sect's patriarch received a piece of news. He didn't have time to refine the amplification law and hurriedly left the Dao sect. Once he left, he actually died. In the end, the amplification law and all the treasures he had left behind were placed in Jiaxing Lu Ha. At this point, the Xing Yi Great Emperor burst into laughter. I originally thought that this was what the Holy Divination Emperor meant by extreme misfortune turns to joy. Now that I think about it, he was talking about you. After the amplification law was placed in Jiaxing Lu, he actually had a chance to escape. However, he needed someone to bring him out. After all, the Jiaxing Lu treasure was quite mysterious, and there was also a 4 extreme treasure suppressing it. The Xing Yi Great Emperor could only struggle at death's door and didn't dare to act rashly. If someone brought him out like Fang Qingshan, the situation would be completely different. However, there were very few people who could come to the Dao Sect's secret vault to choose treasures. Sometimes he was in a deep sleep, and sometimes he looked down on others. That was until Fang Qingshan arrived. At first, he didn't think much of Fang Qingshan. After all, he was just an immortal junior. I didn't expect you to give me a surprise. The Xing Yi Great Emperor sighed. The everlasting lotus. You actually have the aura of the everlasting lotus on you. Most importantly, your cultivation level isn't high, but your eternal Taoist aura is exceptionally strong. Compared to some of the ancient masters of the timeless arc, your Taoist aura is even stronger. Moreover, your treasure-fall coin is quite mysterious, so I took advantage of the situation and fell into your hands. As the Xing Yi Emperor spoke, he suddenly laughed. His laughter contained a hint of madness, causing Fang Qingshan's heart to tremble. He felt a chill run down his spine. After all, he was facing a seemingly crazy Di Zun who was temperamental and full of danger. No one knew what he was thinking or what he was going to do. Originally, I was still thinking about when you would meet my standards and become my new Tao-carrying body. After saying that, the Xing Yi Great Emperor opened his eyes once again. His turbid eyes once again landed on Fang Qingshan. But I didn't expect you to give me a surprise so soon. No, not just a surprise, but also fear. Speaking of this, the Xing Yi Great Emperor was also shocked. Because even with his vast experience, he was shocked by Fang Qingshan's advancement speed and his deep foundation. So much so that he had to act immediately. After all, Fang Qingshan's advancement speed was too fast. Previously, he was at the peak immortal realm, but in the blink of an eye, he was at the late divine emperor realm. Would he become a venerable emperor the next time he broke through? Moreover, Fang Qingshan's cultivation level was already at the late divine emperor realm, and the timeless arc was comparable to a peak divine emperor. It was enough to carry his emperor-level primordial spirit. Chapter 1625. The Xing Yi Heavenly Emperor was an experienced and knowledgeable person. He had seen countless geniuses. Even he himself was. Challenging those of a higher level and breaking through without any bottlenecks was a common occurrence for them. There were even people like Fang Qingshan who could break through an entire realm with a single breakthrough. It was just that they had accumulated their foundation for ages to achieve this, and it usually happened before the immortal realm. But what about Fang Qingshan? Did he spend 100 years breaking through from the immortal realm to the God Emperor realm? Such a short amount of time was not even enough for a mortal to break through to the immortal realm, but he broke through to the late God Emperor realm. Anyone who knew about this would feel that they had lived their lives in vain. Even if it was not enough, the Xing Yi Heavenly Emperor was not prepared to wait any longer. He would rather spend a bit more origin energy to help Fang Qingshan refine his physique than let him grow any further. Otherwise, the chances of his plan succeeding would be next to nothing. Otherwise, when the time comes, all their efforts would be in vain and they would suffer a double loss. Of course, the other reason was that Fang Qingshan wanted to integrate him into the Timeless Arc's Divine Furnace unit. Once he entered the Eternal Divine Furnace and became a Divine Furnace unit, he wouldn't be able to do as he pleased. It was like Sun Wukong wearing the band-tightening curse. With the Eternal Heavenly Vessel's power, he wouldn't be able to turn the situation around if he fell into its trap. Therefore, he had to make a move. Listening to the Xingyi Heavenly Emperor's words, Fang Qingshan sorted out his thoughts. In order to break through, the Xingyi Heavenly Emperor of the Beast era prepared to merge with the Tao. In the end, he failed on the verge of success and wanted to sever a weaker nomological law to get used to it. Then, he continued to increase his strength before merging with the Tao. Unexpectedly, he was devoured by the Tao. When it rains, it pours. When it pours, 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 it pours. Just like the Tao will sex old ancestor, he did not know when he would die. However, one was hidden in the Tao will list, while the other was hidden in the amplification nomological law. Initially, with Zhaixing Liu and a level 4 cardinal treasure, he did not dare to be impudent. But because he had appeared and brought him out of Zhaixing Liu, he had fallen into his trap. Clearly, he wanted to possess him. Moreover, if it wasn't for the fact that his physique wasn't strong enough to bear his emperor-level power, and if it wasn't for the fact that he would have lost more than he gained by consuming his own origin, he would have been killed long ago. Furthermore, if they were to attack him from the moment he brought the law of amplification out of Zhaixing Liu, he would not be able to resist at all. Looks like luck is still with me. Fang Qingshan secretly let out a long sigh of relief. What a pity, what a pity. The Xingyi Emperor clearly didn't know what Fang Qingshan was thinking. He looked at Fang Qingshan, shook his head, and then laughed. Good, good, good. Those who didn't know better would think that he was crazy. In fact, he felt pity for Fang Qingshan's talent. If he hadn't met him, with Fang Qingshan's talent, as long as he didn't encounter any accidents and didn't seek death, he would definitely be able to steadily break through to Venerable Emperor or even peak Venerable Emperor. It was the same for those who applauded, but now this innate talent and luck had helped him achieve his goal. Given Fang Qingshan's innate talent and his own foundation, this was a combination of the strong and the strong. Even if there were signs of rejection, it would only take time for them to get used to each other. As long as the years passed, even if the two sides were to cancel each other out, the combination of the two would definitely strengthen their foundation. In this way, he was a venerable emperor and a peak venerable emperor at that. Fang Qingshan was almost certain to break through to the emperor level, and his potential was unlimited. So, breaking through to the emperor level and returning to his original height was only a matter of time. And this time, he didn't have to take the risk of merging with the Way, because with the timeless arc, it was not impossible to break through to the eternal realm. After all, the foundation of this timeless arc was too strong. Unfortunately, the Xingyi Great Emperor didn't understand at all. If he knew that the timeless arc of Fang Qingshan was not only strong, but too strong. To break through from the ancient realm to the eternal realm, he needed to integrate an early level 4 supreme treasure, and to break through from the eternal realm to a higher level, he probably wouldn't be so confident. After all, even when he was at his peak, he didn't have more than 2 level 4 supreme treasures. Not to mention now, he didn't even have half a supreme treasure. Only a half-broken original spirit was left. Previously, in order to stabilize the timeless arc, the all-heaven chessboard and the reincarnation mirror had already consumed a lot of source power. Phew! After the Xingyi Great Emperor finished speaking, he let out a long breath and felt comfortable. He looked at Fang Qingshan and said with a smile, "Don't blame me. Don't blame me. This is the path of cultivation. Everything is predestined. You can only blame yourself for not being strong enough, just like I was back then. If I was strong enough, I wouldn't have ended up like this. I would have succeeded in Tao integration a long time ago. Let's not talk about this for now. Let me give you a promise. If I can successfully transcend from the myriad heavens and go to the primordial origin, I will definitely help you resurrect. That way, you will feel at ease and honored." As soon as he finished speaking, an indescribable aura erupted from the Xingyi Great Emperor's body. In the next moment, Fang Qingshan seemed to see dozens of figures rushing into the sky. There was a soul-devouring golden rat, a mighty demonic bull, a flying divine tiger, a lunar jade rabbit, a 9-clawed divine dragon, a sky-swallowing bash. However, the strange thing was that these beasts all had flaws. Rats had no teeth, cows had no teeth, Tigers had no spleen, pigs had no lips, dragons had no ears, snakes had no feet, horses had no guts, sheep had no spirits, monkeys had no buttocks, chickens had no kidneys, dogs had no intestines, and pigs had no tendons. Although each of the 12 Xingyi great emperors had their own flaws, when combined, they were perfect. They transformed into a brand new Great Tao. This was the elephant Great Tao that the Xingyi Great Emperor had been yearning for. In an instant, the Great Tao traversed the void, causing countless nomological laws to lose their brilliance and become mere foils. Even the laws of time and space, karma, and reincarnation were no exception. Then, the Xingyi Great Emperor's old and decaying figure suddenly became like an old tree blooming in spring. In an instant, he returned to his youthful appearance. When Fang Qingshan saw this, he knew that the Xingyi Great Emperor had merely released his primordial spirit and revealed his true spirit. Then, the Xingyi Great Emperor didn't hesitate at all. The moment his true spirit appeared, he flew over and directly entered the space between Fang Qingshan's eyebrows. Possession. Yes, the Xingyi Great Emperor had finally taken over Fang Qingshan's body. He wanted to seize Fang Qingshan's fortune and reconstruct his Great Tao. As for Fang Qingshan, he couldn't move at all. He couldn't use any of his strength either. He could only watch as the Xingyi Great Emperor's true spirit entered his body. If anyone else saw this scene, they would definitely think that they were finished. Chapter 16:26. Yes, he was done for. He had plotted against the unsuspecting. Especially since he was an emperor-level being, there was almost no chance of him taking over the body of a non-emperor-level being. Therefore, Fang Qingshan watched as the Emperor of Xingyi's true spirit entered his body and did not react at all. He did not even show a trace of resentment. It was as if he had accepted this fact and accepted it. Moreover, didn't the Emperor of Xingyi promise that if he had the chance and the ability, he would help him resurrect? Although the possibility was not high, it was at least a form of consolation. Actually, it was not impossible for Fang Qingshan to resist. Even though he had been caught off guard by the Emperor of Xingyi and the Timeless Ark, Reincarnation Mirror, and all Heaven chessboard had been frozen, he still had a chance to resist. The greatest trump card in his mind was the Emperor-level will. At the very least, when the Xingyi Martial Emperor's true spirit entered his body and entered his Naiwan Palace, he would be able to give the Xingyi Martial Emperor quite a bit of trouble if he wanted to resist. This was also the reason why the Xingyi Martial Emperor had used psychological attacks, even though he had an overwhelming advantage. He was afraid that Fang Qingshan would fight to the death. Even if he could not survive, he would not let Fang Qingshan have an easy time. Although this was not important to the overall situation, it was still good to reduce some trouble. However, to the Emperor of Xingyi's surprise, Fang Qingshan did not even think of resisting. It was not that he could not, but it was not the right time yet. Yes, it was not the right time yet. Although Fang Qingshan had panicked for a moment when he had suddenly faced the Xingyi Heavenly Emperor, the Eternal Heavenly Vessel, the All-Heaven Chessboard, and the Reincarnation Treasure Mirror had lost their effectiveness, he was still able to control the Xingyi Heavenly Emperor. However, he was a person who had experienced many trials, and his mind had been honed to the extreme. He quickly came back to his senses and thought of a plan to deal with it. Beat him at his own game. Blessings were accompanied by misfortunes, and misfortunes were accompanied by blessings. This time, he had been targeted by an emperor-level primordial spirit. If he was not careful, he could die and everything would be over. However, there were great dangers and opportunities between life and death. If he could seize this opportunity and fight his way out of a hopeless situation, one could imagine how great the benefits would be. Just like the last time, Fang Qingshan narrowly escaped death in the Fallen Dragon's secret realm. However, he gained so much in the end that many peak deity emperors were jealous. Fortune comes from danger. The greater the danger, the greater the rewards once it was over. Therefore, it was the same this time. Fang Qingshan was prepared to seize this opportunity. Others would have long since lost their heads in fear of being possessed by an emperor-level master. They would have wanted nothing more than to resist and seize any opportunity to struggle or make some noise so that others could rescue them. However, Fang Qingshan was different. Although he was cautious, he was also bold. He was actually plotting against a venerable sovereign. If others knew about this, they would probably be so shocked that their eyeballs would fall out. However, it was precisely because of this that the Xingyi heavenly monarch was able to catch the Xingyi heavenly monarch off guard. No one had expected this, and the Xingyi heavenly monarch would naturally not have expected this as well. Thus, the effects of a Xingyi heavenly monarch's attack would be even better. Of course, if one wanted to plot against a venerable sovereign, one must have the confidence to do so. Otherwise, one would be seeking death. Obviously, Fang Qingshan was qualified to do so. Then again, the reason why Fang Qingshan did not make a move at the first moment was because he knew that a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. Although the Xingyi Great Emperor was a dragon in shallow waters and a tiger in a flat land, this did not mean that he would be played by prawns or bullied by dogs. On the contrary, the tiger was dead, and anyone who looked down on him would die a terrible death. Therefore, even if he had the emperor level will left by the great ancestor in his body, even if he could deal with the Xingyi Great Emperor, he might be able to seriously injure or even kill him. However, Fang Qingshan did not act rashly. Although there was such a possibility, the probability of failure was also very high. This kind of thing was extremely dangerous. If he was not careful, he would be consigned to eternal damnation. Naturally, he had to make sure that nothing went wrong. At the very least, he had to increase the probability of success to the limit. Of course, the most important thing was that although the trump card in his mind contained emperor-level power, it was not a complete emperor-level will. The complete one was still on the Dowell list. This was just a split part of it. Although it was powerful, it only had the power to attack once. If it was a complete emperor-level will, Fang Qingshan would naturally have another way to deal with it. Therefore, good steel should be used on the blade. This power must be used to kill in one blow. Otherwise, if he did not achieve this, he would be in trouble and in danger. After all, the Xingyi Great Emperor was an experienced Great Emperor. In the past, he was even more powerful than the Dao Will Sek's great ancestor. Even if it seemed that he needed such an existence the most, Fang Qingshan did not dare to be careless in the slightest. Therefore, Fang Qingshan did not start his counterattack the moment the Xingyi Great Emperor entered his Naiwan palace. After all, he also knew that a person was the most vigilant when he entered an unfamiliar place. Even if the Xingyi Great Emperor might underestimate him because he was far weaker than him, but as a venerable emperor who had been fighting between life and death for many years, how could he not know that even a lion would use its full strength to catch a rabbit? Therefore, if he attacked now, it was very likely that all his efforts would be in vain. Therefore, Fang Qingshan directly gave up on resisting. He let the army march straight in and attack the root of the problem. He was prepared to counterattack when he was at his peak, which was also when he was at his weakest. This was the time when he was most relaxed and the time when his chances of success were the highest. But this was not mentioned. As the Xingyi Great Emperor's real spirit entered his body, Fang Qingshan suddenly felt as if his body was about to explode. An unprecedented power exploded in his body. It was so pure, so huge, and so difficult to bear. It was even more powerful than the eternal blessing. This did not mean that the Xingyi Great Emperor's power surpassed the eternal power. It could only be said that the eternal power that Fang Qingshan drew was not comparable to the emperor-level Great Path. Moreover, the eternal blessing was also controlled by the everlasting lotus, so it was more docile. It took the initiative to integrate. Although the emperor-level power was also controlled by the Xingyi Great Emperor, it did not integrate. Instead, it replaced and swallowed. Naturally, it was more domineering and uncomfortable. Fang Qingshan's body was already considered very powerful among people of the same level. It was not any weaker than those deity emperors who specialized in body cultivation. However, at this moment, he still felt overwhelmed. Not only his body, but his laws, primordial spirit, and everything else were showing signs of collapsing at the slightest touch. Actually, Fang Qingshan was already prepared for this. Previously, It was said that the Xingyi Great Emperor did not appear earlier or later, but at this moment. One of the reasons was that Fang Qingshan's body was not strong enough to bear the emperor-level power in the Great Path. If his body was not strong enough to bear the power in the Great Path, it would directly collapse, and all his efforts would be in vain. Chapter 16:27. Although he had known about it and was mentally prepared, the strength of the emperor-level power still exceeded his expectations. Most importantly, if he could not bear it all, he would collapse in an instant. If he could bear it, everything would be fine. But for someone like Fang Qingshan, who barely passed, it would be painful. Although Fang Qingshan often tempered his body, endured pain, and sharpened his will, he did not expect the Xingyi martial emperor's true spirit to be so painful. In fact, this was normal. Why was the emperor level the real, stabilizing force of a force? No matter how many peak divine emperors a sect had, they could not compare to a venerable emperor. Because the emperor level was a real watershed, a qualitative change. Just like those below Origin Immemorial and those below Origin Immemorial, those below sages were ants. It was the same for those below venerable emperor. Before the emperor level, it was possible to challenge those of a higher level. But at the emperor level, it was almost impossible for even someone like Fang Qingshan to challenge those of a higher level. Even if his cultivation broke through to peak divine emperor, even if the other divine furnace units in the immortal timeless arc were filled, it would still not be possible. Only if the eternal heavenly vessel broke through to the eternal rank first would that be possible. Otherwise, even if you were given a treasure of 4 extremes, you would definitely not be able to beat an venerable emperor. At most, you would only be able to hold on a little longer. After all, no matter how good the treasure was, there must be a worthy user. Otherwise, it would be like a 3-year-old wielding a sledgehammer, hurting oneself before hurting others. It was at this time that the emperor-level power had undergone a qualitative change. The power it contained was astonishing. Without the corresponding strength, it was impossible to bear it. If one forcibly accepted it, there would only be one result: exploding and dying. In fact, this could be seen from listening to the Great Tao. Forcibly comprehending a Great Tao that one could not understand would result in a backlash from the Great Tao. Forcibly integrating a power that one could not bear would naturally result in a backlash from the Great Tao. Excruciating pain. Unprecedented excruciating pain. The pain that seemed to be more intense than all the pain Fang Qingshan had experienced in the past hit Fang Qingshan like an avalanche. It was as if the pain had erupted from his bone marrow, his internal organs, his deep memories, his cells, and the deepest parts of his body, sweeping through his entire body. This kind of intense pain made him feel as if his soul was pierced by countless sharp swords and torn into countless pieces. Fang Qingshan could be considered as someone who had been through many trials and tribulations. However, he had never experienced such pain before. It was indescribable. Fortunately, Fang Qingshan had long ago enveloped his true spirit in the emperor-level Tao intent and had it hibernating in the deepest part of his soul. Otherwise, under this kind of pain, he might not even have the energy to fight against the Xingyi Emperor. Good. Although Fang Qingshan was in pain, the Xingyi Great Emperor was extremely satisfied. He had originally thought that in order to perfectly fuse with Fang Qingshan's body, he would first have to consume a great deal of his own origin energy to properly improve it. After all, Fang Qingshan's cultivation had improved to the late Divine Emperor, but his body might not have improved to this level. Even if it had improved to this level, it was still not enough. Therefore, the Xingyi Great Emperor was not in a hurry to do other things when the true spirit entered his body. Instead, he was ready to use his own origin energy to maintain, repair, and refine Fang Qingshan's body, so as to improve it to the level where it could bear the Great Tao. Unexpectedly, he gave the Xingyi Great Emperor a big surprise. Fang Qingshan's body was actually so strong. He had just broken through to the late Divine Emperor realm, but he did not stop fusing with the Emperor-level Tao. Although it seemed to be on the verge of collapse, it was not yet. Just like a roly-poly toy, it was still holding on like the last straw that broke the camel's back. I see. Your body has actually been transformed to this level by the eternal divine power. The younger generation will surpass the older in time. Then, the Xingyi Great Emperor's surprised voice rang in Feng Qingshan's mind again. In fact, this was the main reason why Feng Qingshan could bear the Emperor-level Tao. The transformation of the essence of life. Yes, as the timeless arc advanced from Ling Yun to the immortal realm, Feng Qingshan experienced eternal blessings one after another. Until recently, the quantitative change finally led to a qualitative change. Feng Qingshan's body began to evolve beyond the myriad worlds. This time, the timeless arc advanced to the immortal realm. Under the eternal blessings, the greatest benefit that Feng Qingshan obtained was not the completion of the Divine Emperor chapter, nor the improvement of his cultivation base, but the improvement of the essence of life. The eternal divine marrow, the eternal transformation, had begun to spread from the spine to the whole body. This change was comprehensive. It was of great help to Feng Qingshan's breakthrough to the Emperor level. Compared to the life celestial Emperor one-line sky, the eternal Emperor elixir had a better effect. Even the Emperor stone could not compare. After all, the Emperor stone was a product of the fall of an emperor. Emperors were just creatures of the myriad worlds. The greatest help they could provide was to break through to the Emperor level. There might be some help after that, but after that, they would be completely powerless to help those above the Emperor level. Feng Qingshan's eternal transformation was like stepping 1 foot into the primordial species level, just like Mosquito Dauren. Why did the timeless arc and Mosquito Dauren not have bottlenecks? As long as they had enough resources, they could continuously improve their cultivation base and grade. This was because they did not belong to the myriad worlds or the boundless void. Instead, they came from the higher primordial origin world. They were not limited by the laws of the myriad worlds at all. This feeling was like other people's cultivation was constantly breaking through bottlenecks and constantly transforming, while their cultivation was just unlocking the seal on their cultivation base. Resources were like a key. As long as they had enough resources, they could unlock the layers of seals. Therefore, there were no bottlenecks, and it was very easy. Although Feng Qingshan had not reached this stage, it was clear that he was moving in this direction because of the eternal blessing. He was ahead of everyone else. If he could be completely transformed into a primordial species, he could break through the shackles of the myriad worlds. His chances of breaking through to a higher cultivation base would be much higher. Putting all this aside, the Xingyi Emperor was very happy to feel that Feng Qingshan's body could support him. This meant that he did not need to spend extra energy to improve his physique. After all, he was also a crippled body, and the landlord did not have surplus food. Every bit he could save was a bit. In this way, he was more confident that he could perfectly fuse with Feng Qingshan and recover faster. All right, you can go in peace. I will walk the great path for you. If you have any last wishes, I will fulfill them for you in the future. Don't worry. I swear in the name of the great path that if I can, when I have the ability, it will not be a problem to resurrect you. The Xingyi Emperor solemnly promised Feng Qingshan. Chapter 1628. Give your body to me. Fusing with me is the best choice. With your foundation and my experience, there is a higher chance of breaking through the bottleneck and breaking through to the arch realm. You have me in you, and I have you in me. You are me, and I am you. In the future, when I achieve my Tao, it will be the moment of your glory. When I have the ability, it will be the day of your resurrection. The Xingyi Great Emperor's voice was dreamy, bewitching, and murmuring. One could not help but listen to him. At this moment, Feng Qingshan did not seem to have any reluctance at all. He even started to actively fuse with the Xingyi Great Emperor. Seeing this, the Xingyi Great Emperor was even more delighted. It was not that he thought that Feng Qingshan still had a chance to resist. Rather, if Feng Qingshan did not resist and actively cooperated, the effect would be even better. Not only did the Xingyi Great Emperor's fusion speed increase, but the foundation that he had obtained from Feng Qingshan was even more complete. What he wanted was a complete Feng Qingshan who had a solid foundation, not a Feng Qingshan who was riddled with holes and filled with resentment. That way, he would have to spend a lot of effort to get rid of the impurities and recover the body, and he would gain even less. Fuse. I will let you know what it feels like to work for someone else. What it feels like to feel despair. Feng Qingshan snorted coldly. Although he had wrapped a bit of his true spirit in the Arch Great Path and hidden it in the depths of his primordial spirit, this did not mean that he had no consciousness. If he fell into a deep sleep, he would not feel any pain. He was just waiting like an assassin in the dark, like a venomous snake in the treetops. He was waiting for the best time to deal a fatal blow. Indeed, the Xingyi Great Emperor was as cautious as he had imagined. With his strength, he could completely suppress others with his strength. He could break through all techniques with his strength, and he could easily suppress Yifutian. However, during the fusion process, he was still using such a bewitching voice on Yifutian. Clearly, he knew that even a lion would use its full strength to capture a rabbit. If Feng Qingshan did not have a strong will, as well as the Arch Great Path, he would most likely have been foolishly tricked. Now, he naturally gave up on resisting and took the initiative to fuse with the Xingyi Emperor. Firstly, he couldn't resist even if he wanted to. Secondly, the arrogance of the enemy would make the enemy let down their guard. Third, he was waiting for the right moment, and when victory was in sight, he would kill him in one strike. Furthermore, the Xingyi Heavenly Emperor was right about one thing. During the fusion process, before he had completely digested it, there was indeed him in you and you in me. This way, he would be able to restrict his strength to a greater extent, and it would be more convenient for him to take action. Not bad. Feeling Feng Qingshan's cooperation, the Xingyi Emperor nodded in satisfaction. That was it. As long as he completely integrated with Feng Qingshan, even if he had other thoughts and tricks, he would be nothing more than a grasshopper at the end of autumn. He's really young. The Xingyi Emperor shook his head, but he didn't think that this was Feng Qingshan's scheme. He was confident in his own strength. However, he lamented that Feng Qingshan was still too young and inexperienced. Otherwise, his fusion wouldn't have gone so smoothly. If he was in Feng Qingshan's shoes and someone wanted to possess him, he definitely wouldn't have succeeded so easily. Moreover, the moment he woke up, he would fight to the death. Even if he failed in the end, he would leave a mess for the other party. What he didn't know was that it wasn't that Feng Qingshan's temperament wasn't weak, but that his temperament was too strong. He wasn't thinking about how to save his own life or how he would rather die in glory than live in dishonor. Instead, he wanted to beat him at his own game and turn the tables on him. If he knew this, he wouldn't be feeling the way he did now. This is... In the reincarnation dojo, within the timeless Arkansas, Feng Qingshan's body stood straight and still. A majestic pillar of light filled the place, as though it was wrapping around his body and bursting out from within. Rat, cow, tiger, rabbit, dragon, snake, horse, goat, monkey, chicken, dog, and pig. The 12 forms were slowly converging, as though they were squeezing into his body and merging with it. Elephant origin. This was the origin of great Tao of Xingyi Emperor. At a certain moment, he suddenly exclaimed in surprise, and then let out a surprised sigh. I see. I didn't expect that apart from the Timeless Ark, you also have the All-Heaven chessboard. Although it isn't a chaos divine item, if it grows, it can be said to be a well-deserved, peerless treasure. It's even better than my special magic treasure in the past. I didn't expect the Eternal Force to have such a magical effect. It can actually be used for stone gambling. The Tao is really blessing me. With this skill, I can definitely surpass the Emperor realm and become the first existence to break through the shackles of the world. After discovering that Feng Qingshan's physique wouldn't have any problems, Xingyi Emperor began to merge with Feng Qingshan's primordial spirit. Then, Feng Qingshan's secret was completely exposed in front of him. The all-heaven chessboard, the eternal heart lamp, his origin, his ambition, seeing that it only took Feng Qingshan such a short time to cultivate to the late-stage god emperor, Xingyi Emperor couldn't help but be surprised. After all, even he himself had spent 10 times the effort of Fong Qingshan to cultivate to the God Emperor realm in the past. Seeing the foundation and the supreme treasure of the timeless ark, Xingyi Emperor couldn't help but sigh. He was happy, but also felt a headache. Seeing the all-heaven chessboard and the stone gambling skill, Xingyi Emperor was wild with joy. He heaved a long sigh of relief and understood where Fong Qingshan's confidence came from. Previously, when he saw the foundation of the timeless ark, Xingyi Emperor was shocked. With such a foundation, breaking through to the eternal realm wouldn't be difficult. However, when he truly understood how Fong Qingshan managed to maintain such a foundation, he couldn't bring himself to be happy anymore. Breaking through from the ancient realm to the eternal realm actually required the integration of a low-grade level 4 supreme treasure. Breaking through to the eternal realm required the integration of a higher-grade level 4 supreme treasure. Good heavens! Even when he was at his peak in his previous life, he only had 2 level 4 supreme treasures on him. One was low-grade, and one was high-grade. As for the timeless ark, even the worst unit of the eternal divine furnace had at least 3 empty slots. Obviously, it needed at least 6 level 4 supreme treasures, 3 low-grade, and 3 mid-grade. How was he supposed to find so many supreme treasures? The landlord didn't have any surplus food, and even the cleverest housewife couldn't cook without rice. Not to mention him, even the all-beast great emperor who had gathered an entire beast epic in the past couldn't take out so many supreme treasures. As for plundering, refining, Xingyi Emperor felt a headache just thinking about it. If it was treasures of other grades, it would be fine. But level 4 supreme treasures really weren't that easy to find. Just like how Fong Qingshan had a headache over the Emperor-level Tao book, there were very few of them, and those who had them were all extraordinary. Chapter 1629. If an Emperor-level Taoist book could be obtained by trading, then it was impossible to obtain a level 4 supreme treasure. Because an Emperor-level Taoist book, as long as it was not a cultivation method that one specialized in, even if one traded it, it would just be a copy and one might have to pay a price. But if a level 4 supreme treasure was traded, it would be completely lost. A level 4 supreme treasure, even a lower level 4 supreme treasure, was very helpful to venerable sovereigns and even top-level venerable sovereigns, as it was a symbol of strength. In his previous life, the Xingyi Great Emperor had 2 level 4 supreme treasures, and one of them was a lower level 4 supreme treasure. Therefore, it was impossible to get a level 4 supreme treasure through trading. Even if someone was willing to trade, the treasures needed to trade would not be any less valuable than a level 4 supreme treasure, and might even be more valuable. In this case, it was better to refine a new one. Therefore, the only way to get a level 4 supreme treasure was to explore the secret, obtain it by chance, rob it by force, and refine it by oneself. Let's talk about exploring secrets. Through fortuitous encounters, one would be able to obtain level 4 treasures in dangerous ruins. Not to mention the fact that there weren't many of such places, the most important thing was that these places were extremely dangerous. The slightest bit of carelessness would cause one to end up suffering the consequences of going for wool and coming home shorn. Even venerable sovereigns could die there. In the universe, venerable sovereigns died in many ways, except for those who failed in path unification, died because of the backfire of the Great Way, lost in a fight, died because of bad luck, went against the river of time and space, and disappeared forever. No one knew if they were alive or dead, and no one knew if they were dead. In addition, they died in these dangerous ruins while exploring the secret. As for robbing it by force, it was not a good way. After all, those who could become venerable sovereigns and had level 4 supreme treasures were not easy to deal with. Unless they were like the Tao Will sect, where their great ancestor had died and there was no emperor level in the sect. But even so, the Tao Will sect had been declining for so long, and no emperor level had come to fight them. Apart from other reasons, the most important thing was that they had a strong foundation, and they could at least fight to the death with you. As for venerable sovereigns, even if they could not defeat you, they had a lot of life-saving trump cards, so they had a great chance of escaping. Except for people like the Xingyi Emperor who had fallen into the bottom of his luck, very few venerable sovereigns were killed in a fight with their opponents. As for the matter of refining it himself, the Xingyi Heavenly Emperor looked as if he couldn't bear to recall the past. Back then, his luck wasn't very good. He had explored the secrets of seclusion, but he had never obtained a level 4 supreme treasure. At most, he had obtained some heaven and earth treasures. Level 4 supreme treasures had to be refined by himself. Perhaps only his own treasure would suffer the hardships during this period. He was a peak-level great emperor, but his strongest treasure was only an upper-level 4 treasure. Otherwise, even if he was not as strong as the myriad beast great emperor, he would only be slightly weaker. Of course, if that was the case, it would still be fine. As long as he had enough time, he would be able to refine it. In any case, the lifespan of an emperor-level expert was almost limitless. As long as there were no accidents, he would not have to worry about his life, even if he lived until the end of the universe. However, the most important thing was that the Timeless Ark's Divine Furnace unit wasn't just a 4th-tier treasure. It had to be suitable, which made it even more difficult. Fortunately, he found that Fang Qingshan's stone gambling skill was completely cheating. He had never thought that stone gambling could be played like this. In the boundless void of the universe, there were many examples of people who became rich overnight by gambling on stones and soared to the sky in one fell swoop. Even though everyone knew that this kind of chance depended on luck, even venerable sovereigns couldn't help but want to have a try. In the past, the Xingyi Heavenly Emperor had also dreamed of getting a top-level treasure. Unfortunately, just like he had never obtained a level 4 supreme treasure. Every time he got a top-level treasure, he suffered a huge loss, let alone a top-level one. The only difference was that he didn't drink gambling as much as the Jin family's Minister of Offerings. If he had this kind of skill in the past, he wouldn't have had to struggle to this day. However, a blessing lies in a curse, and a curse lies in a blessing. If it weren't for this, he wouldn't have met Fang Qingshan, let alone seen the hope of breaking through to the emperor level. At most, he would have become a part of the Great Way like other venerable sovereigns. I see. The Xingyi Heavenly Emperor was overjoyed when he realized this. With this skill, the probability of breaking through to the eternal realm and emperor level will skyrocket. At this moment, under the Xingyi Heavenly Emperor's extremely powerful and irresistible power, his source and real spirit were slowly merging into Fang Qingshan's body. Fang Qingshan's whole body was transforming in an extreme way, especially his body and magic power, under the combination of eternal divine power and emperor-level power, were being destroyed and rebuilt. They were being destroyed and repaired at a speed visible to the naked eye. They were becoming stronger at a speed visible to the naked eye, advancing towards emperor-level body and magic power. As for his primordial spirit and laws, although they were also becoming stronger, they were different from his body and magic power. His body was being transformed and tempered, and his magic power was being compressed and transformed. But his primordial spirit and laws were being devoured and replaced. But overall, he was being reborn. Even though Fang Qingshan's real spirit had been enveloped by emperor-level will of the Great Way and had hidden in the deepest part of his primordial spirit, he still didn't want it to happen again. However, he didn't cut off the feeling of pain. Firstly, if he didn't react at all, it would easily alert the Xingyi Heavenly Emperor. Secondly, although the pain was unbearable, it was very helpful in tempering his willpower. Only by enduring the most bitter of hardships could one rise above others. Thirdly, he had to control the timing. If he cut off the feeling of pain, there might be a deviation. At this moment, if there was even the slightest deviation, he might be consigned to eternal damnation. Fang Qingshan couldn't afford to take such a risk. Therefore, even though Fang Qingshan was too insignificant compared to the Xingyi Heavenly Emperor's source power, he still gritted his teeth and persevered. Pain. The pain was hysterical. It was as if there were millions of ants crawling in his bones. The aching and itching feeling made him want to dig out his bones and grind them into powder. At the same time, he wanted to kill those crawling ants. His internal organs felt as if there were countless venomous insects gnawing away at them. All the organs in his body had stopped functioning. Only two kinds of power were fighting. One was Emperor-level source power, and the other was eternal divine power. The former was constantly destroying, tearing, grinding, and pulling, while the latter was constantly repairing and tempering. Then, he was destroyed again, and then repaired again. The cycle repeated itself. If someone were to see Feng Qingshan right now, he would look like a giant blood cocoon. Chapter 16:30. The pain was constantly attacking Feng Qingshan's primordial spirit and true soul. Furthermore, the pain itself was extraordinary. It was even greater than all the pain Feng Qingshan had experienced in the past. Most importantly, Feng Qingshan didn't dare cut off the connection or reduce the pain because he was afraid that the Xingyi Heavenly Dharch would find out in advance. Endure. The only thing Feng Qingshan could do now was endure. Not only did he have to endure, but he also had to remain calm. This was because he was still waiting for the perfect opportunity to deal the Xingyi Heavenly Dharch a fatal blow. Only by remaining calm would he be able to seize that fleeting opportunity. Right now, if one looked through the blood cocoon, Feng Qingshan's entire body wouldn't take shape. In his Naiwen palace, the nomological laws and primordial spirit were separated into two, one big and one small. The small one was naturally Feng Qingshan's, while the big one was the Xingyi Heavenly Thearchus. The smaller the small one, the bigger the big one. As for his physical body, it had completely collapsed. Tendons, bones, skin, flesh, acupoints, organs, bone marrow, they were all in a mess. The Overlord-level source power and the eternal power intertwined, and a domineering power seeped into every cell in Feng Qingshan's body. Heaven and earth furnace. Right now, Feng Qingshan was like a stubborn rock that was being tempered by the two powers. His life essence, which had already evolved due to the eternal power, sped up. Segments of his already powerful genetic sequences were being transformed by the mysterious power to become even more powerful. However, compared to when he had experienced the eternal power, the process was much faster now. This wasn't to say that the eternal power wasn't as powerful as the Overlord-level power. However, this kind of transformation was like the wind sneaking into the night, quietly nourishing everything. It was an imperceptible transformation. Right now, because the transformation had already been completed, the beginning was always the hardest. Since the foundation had already been laid, the transformation was naturally easier. Furthermore, the transformation was a combination of the two powers. This transformation was unprecedentedly domineering. Hence, the effect was much better. It was just that Feng Qingshan had to suffer more. However, to the Emperor Xing Yi, this change was unprecedented. First of all, there can be no construction without destruction. As long as he was not completely overwhelmed, once the transformation was completed, although his body would not immediately reach the height of his previous life, he would almost immediately be able to exert the power of an emperor. Although the primordial spirit could also exert emperor-level battle prowess, the two could not be mentioned in the same breath. A primordial soul emperor was equivalent to a nascent soul attaining the Tao. It was very easy to restrain him, and with a complete physical body, not only could one's strength be stronger, they wouldn't have to worry about any backlash, and they wouldn't be easily countered. After all, it was not enough to just possess Feng Qingshan. He still had to deal with the Dao sect. Although he felt that he wouldn't be discovered, it was better to be safe than sorry. Once bitten, twice shy. Back then, he had failed to sever his Tao. While he had been devoured by the great Tao, his enemies had also come looking for him. This had left a shadow in his heart. This time, he naturally had to be careful. It would be fine if he wasn't discovered, but if he was, the Tao sect would not be easy to deal with. After all, although they no longer had an emperor, they still had more than one level 4 supreme treasure. Especially since they were fighting on their home ground, they were at an even greater disadvantage. Moreover, this method of completely destroying everything and reconstructing the body, it would allow him to better fuse with Feng Qingshan's body and there would be no rejection. Therefore, as the emperor-level source energy forcibly integrated into his body, Feng Qingshan's body began to overflow with an aura that did not belong to him. It belonged to the Emperor Xing Yi. The aura that belonged to Feng Qingshan became weaker and weaker, like a candle in the wind. Obviously, it would not be long before Feng Qingshan was replaced by the Emperor Xing Yi if nothing unexpected happened. In the future, there would no longer be a person named Feng Qingshan in the universe. There would only be the Emperor Xing Yi who would make a comeback. The Emperor Xing did not engulf Feng Qingshan in a single breath. Instead, he engulfed and digested him bit by bit, because one could not become fat in a single breath. If he engulfed Feng Qingshan now, he would have to spend more effort to integrate and recuperate in the future. Because of this, Feng Qingshan had a chance. In the depths of his primordial spirit, Feng Qingshan's true spirit, which had been completely distorted by the attack of pain, had a pair of unprecedentedly bright eyes. However, the two rays of cold light in his pupils were also unprecedentedly cold, making people shudder. At the same time, in the Daoist sect, Taoist Yi and the others were immersed in the joy of Feng Qingshan's breakthrough to the late-stage God Emperor and Timeless Ark's breakthrough to the immortal realm. It should be noted that once Feng Qingshan broke through to the peak God Emperor and Timeless Ark broke through to the immortal realm, they would have the battle strength of an emperor realm. Even now, Feng Qingshan's strength could not be said to be the best in the Daoist sect, but he could at least be ranked in the top 3. If he had a level 4 supreme treasure, he could even fight with an emperor realm expert. After all, compared to others, even if he had a level 4 supreme treasure, he would not be able to exert much power. With Timeless Ark, Feng Qingshan did not have to worry about energy consumption. Therefore, at this moment, the Daoist sect had the strength of an emperor realm expert. Therefore, they were already considering whether to restore the glory of the past and reclaim the old land. At the same time, they were also considering how to arrange for Feng Qingshan and reward Feng Qingshan. Right at this moment, everyone suddenly felt a sense of panic for no reason. Although this panic was not comparable to the feeling when the Daoist sect's great ancestor died and the feeling of other forces attacking them, it was not much different. What's going on? Is it a blessing in disguise and a blessing in disguise? Or is the rise of the Daoist sect a test given to us by the great Tao of heaven and earth? Although Feng Qingshan had closed the reincarnation dojo and activated the mountain defense formation, and the place of seclusion was in the core space of Timeless Arkansas. And the Xingyi Great Emperor's attack was too fast. No information was sent out. Logically speaking, everything should be calm and peaceful at this time. However, the result was the opposite. When Feng Qingshan's body was taken, the entire Daoist sect was alarmed. One could see in the sky above the Tao chaotic world. The huge merit cloud sea appeared again and began to shake violently. However, this time, it was completely different from the inner disciple competition and the time when Feng Qingshan advanced. This time, the sea of karmic providence and the true spirit of providence weren't cheering, growing, or expanding. Instead, they were declining sharply, as if they were about to collapse. At the same time, the true spirit of providence that was coiled up in the sea of clouds was letting out bursts of anguished wails, and even its light had dimmed. Chapter 16:31. With the appearance of the sea of karmic luck and the appearance of the true spirit of fate, the entire Tao chaos world was in a state of unrest. Although this feeling was incomparable to the complete destruction of the fallen dragon's secret realm, it would not be any better if the situation continued to worsen. Heaven and earth wailed, and even the laws became chaotic. The entire world was shaking, and strands of black tribulation energy gathered in the sky above the Tao chaos world. The entire world, from living beings to non-living beings, seemed abnormally violent and dispirited. It was as if he could feel the aura of death. How could it be like this? The karmic luck and true spirits are unstable, and the cloud sea is shaking. This is the sign of a great tribulation. Who is it? Who is it that is attacking my Tao will sect? Is this a test of heaven and earth, or a conspiracy? With a sudden impulse, his primordial spirit warned him. Taoist E and the others had already felt a sense of panic and shortness of breath. Before they could react, they saw the Tao will sect's fortune begin to fluctuate, and even the Tao will list could not suppress it. All of them were shocked. As the sect master of the Tao will sect, Taoist E could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood due to his deep connection with karmic luck. Sect master. Seeing this scene, Qian Duo, Zhuge Jin, and the others were immediately shocked. I'm fine. Taoist E waved his hand. Then, with a thought in his mind, he prepared to communicate with the Tao-seeking boy to find out what had happened, so that he could deal with it in a targeted manner. Unfortunately, his wishful thinking was not going to work, because at this moment, the Tao school's karmic luck was in turmoil. Moreover, it was undergoing turmoil and extremely shocking speed, causing the entire karmic luck true spirit to seem extremely dispirited. A Chi Flow true spirit was born from Chi Flow. If Chi Flow was strong, then it would naturally grow stronger as well. If Chi Flow was weakened, then it would suffer as well. At the very least, it would be weakened in an indirect way. As the sect master of the Tao will school, Taoist E could naturally sense the current situation of the karmic luck. His face was so gloomy that it seemed as if it could freeze the world. Then, he realized that he could not communicate with the child of Tao will at all. It was not that he could not communicate with them, nor was it that the child of Tao will had betrayed him. But at this moment, he was suppressing the Tao will sect's karmic luck with all his strength, and he couldn't be distracted at all. How was the sect leader? When they saw Taoist, he opened his eyes. Although they could feel the domineering aura coming from his body, they still asked with hope in their hearts. Karmic luck is in turmoil. The Tao Insight rankings are suppressing it with all their might, but the situation doesn't seem to be turning for the better. Taoist E took a deep breath and said, he did not make it too clear. According to what he felt and the changes in the providence, the Tao sect seemed to have encountered an unprecedented crisis once again. It seemed to be even more intense than when the patriarch had fallen. Faced with both internal and external threats, the Tao sect's luck seemed to have become rootless duckweed, and a large area was completely out of control. It could be said that if they did not think of a solution soon, it would probably dissipate. I sacrifice my blood for the great Tao. Taoist E took out a sword and slashed it across his palm while muttering an incantation. In the next moment, a blood-red light soared into the sky and transformed into a mirror in midair. Taoist E had taken out the sect master's command sword and used his own blood essence as a guide to execute the bloodlight technique in order to trace back to the root of the matter. Let's see what's going on. Was it heaven's will, or was it man's doing? It would be fine if it was heaven's will, but if it was man's doing, all the elders of the Tao will sect had a cold glint in their eyes. They would not rest until one of them was dead. Countless runes flashed on the blood mirror, and countless images appeared. Unfortunately, they could not see anything. After all, Emperor-level power was not something he could deduce. Moreover, the Timeless Arc also had the effect of concealing heavenly secrets. He had really shot himself in the foot. The concealing heavenly secrets that should have helped him had become an obstacle to his rescue this time. If he died because of the Timeless Arc concealing heavenly secrets, Feng Qingshan would probably become a laughingstock. Putting all this aside, the combination of the two concealing heavenly secrets naturally made it impossible for Taoist E to deduce what was going on. However, because it concerned the Tao sect, he still found some clues. It was a conspiracy against the Tao sect. It was man's doing, not heaven's will. Damn it, it really is a conspiracy against the Tao sect. Taoist E's eyes were wide open and bloodshot. His face was full of hostility, and he almost wanted to eat someone on the spot. He was not the only one. All the people from the Tao sect who knew the news had almost the same reaction. There were really endless conspiracies against the Tao sect, provoking them again and again. Did they really think that the Tao sect was a pushover? If a tiger didn't show its might, it would think that they were sick cats. First, they targeted the disciples of the Tao sect. Although they still couldn't find out what exactly was going on, they still couldn't do anything about it. Although they could not find out what exactly it was, just by looking at the intensity of the Tao sect's luck fluctuation, they could imagine that they would not give up. What should we do now? Sect leader. At this moment, Zhuge Jin and the others all looked at Taoist Yi. As soon as he gave the order, they would go all out. This time, no matter who it was or what the situation was, they would fight to the end. Even if the Tao sect was no match for them, they would fight to the death without retreating. Because if they did not retreat, they would retreat step by step. They had already retreated the last time, but not long after, they were targeting the Tao sect again. Moreover, they were getting more and more ferocious each time. If I let them go this time, they did not know what the next time would be like. Instead of passively taking a beating, it was better to fight with their lives on the line. It was better to die in glory than to live in dishonor. Even if they died, they would break the enemy's teeth. All right, this time, we will let them see if the Tao sect is easy to bully. Taoist Yi nodded and then instructed. There are two things. One is to help the Tao ranking suppress the luck. This matter will be completed by me, the elders with real power and the true disciples. Yes, Zhuge Jin and the others responded in unison. The reason why it was them was because they occupied more luck. They could better assist the Tao ranking in suppressing the luck. The second is to immediately investigate the ins and outs of this matter. Once you find anything, report it immediately. And then, although Taoist did not finish his sentence, everyone understood the meaning of his words, and everyone revealed a ferocious expression. This matter will be led by the Grand Supreme Elder. Yes, among the many elders, an inconspicuous old man who stood beside Old Ten nodded his head indifferently. This person was Taoist Yi's master, the previous Tao sect leader. Like Old Tan and the others, he was an existence that was about to break through to the half-step emperor realm. Be it cultivation or status, in the Tao sect, he was second only to the current sect leader. Chapter 1632. A conspiracy? It was hard to say yes, but it was also not. It was because if Fang Qingshan was really successfully possessed, the Tao sect would indeed be greatly affected, and there was even a possibility that they would be consigned to eternal damnation. This was also why there had been such a huge commotion earlier. There were two simple reasons. One was naturally because of Fang Qingshan. It was said earlier that along with the improvement of Fang Qingshan's cultivation, his current combat strength had practically attained the standard of the top 3 in Tao Insight Realm. If he possessed a Grade 4 precious treasure, then it wouldn't be impossible for him to go head-to-head with an expert that had just advanced into the Emperor rank. Although he had not yet become an Emperor-level powerhouse, and his potential had not been fully developed, he was still a true disciple. However, he obviously could not be recognized as a disciple. He could be said to be the true pillar of the Tao sect, and his status was probably even higher than Taoist Yi's. This was because his current combat power had surpassed Taoist Yi's, and the probability of him breaking through to the Emperor level in the future was completely incomparable to Taoist Yi. Therefore, when he broke through, the Providence true spirit manifested and the heavens and earth celebrated. This kind of celebration was not an act of selling dog meat or sheep's head. It would only manifest when it was truly beneficial to the heavens and the Tao sect. Just like in Desolation, the Tao sect's providence would be celebrated because of their Tao integration, and Hongjun Tiandao would be more perfect. When Fang Qingshan broke through, the Tao sect's providence would naturally rise, and even the level 4 treasure, the Tao list, would benefit greatly. Once he broke through to the Emperor level, the entire Tao sect would undergo earth-shattering changes. Therefore, when Fang Qingshan was killed, the entire Tao sect would undergo such a shocking change. It was no less than when the great ancestor died and the other forces came to fight. In fact, it was even more dangerous. This was because at that time, the people who came to fight were basically peak divine emperors, and there were no venerable emperors. However, things are different now. The Dao sect also had emperor-level powerhouses. This was the second reason, and that was because of the Xingyi emperor. He had taken over Feng Qingshan's body. Given his personality, it was naturally impossible for him to continue acting as Feng Qingshan. After all, once the transformation was completed, although it was impossible for him to reach the venerable sovereign realm in a single bound, it would not be a problem for him to have the strength of an emperor realm. Moreover, it was not much harder for him to break through to the divine emperor level compared to others. With such great power and the fact that he was once a top-notch great emperor, how could he still stay in the Dao sect as a disciple? Most importantly, he was still eyeing the Dao sect. After all, Feng Qingshan, the timeless arc, and the all-heaven chessboard would require a lot of resources to level up. If the entire Dao sect faced a great calamity, they would not have to worry about resources for a short period of time, especially breaking through from undying to eternal. He had seen quite a number of pinnacle level 3 treasures in Jiaxing Lu. In fact, if he robbed the Dao sect and broke through from the ancient immemorial realm to the eternal realm, his mission progress would break through to 0. This was because the Dao sect had more than one level 4 supreme treasure. If it was Feng Qingshan, he would not be ungrateful and cause trouble. However, for the Xingyi Great Emperor, every man for himself would be destroyed. Killing and arson would earn money, and repairing bridges and roads would leave no corpses behind. The Dao sect had no venerable sovereigns, but they had rich resources. More importantly, they had not discovered him yet. If he did not seize such a great opportunity, he would be punished. Therefore, the conspiracy against the Dao sect that Taoist Yi saw was not wrong. The Xingyi Great Emperor was indeed targeting the Dao sect, their future, and their resources. As for whether it was true or not, it was because Taoist Yi and the others had made a mistake. Once bitten, twice shy. As soon as they thought of a conspiracy, they could not help but think of the last time the Eternal Heaven sect and the others joined forces to target the Dao sect disciples. This time was no exception. After all, they had made a comeback and created an even bigger conspiracy. As for the fact that the conspiracy had originated from within the Dao sect, no one had thought of it, nor would they have thought of it. After all, who would have thought that the primordial spirit of a fallen venerable sovereign would be hidden in the Dao sect's secret vault? And this item was brought back by the Dao sect's patriarch? In the end, if the Dao sect really declined because of this, it could only be said that it was fate. Taoist Yi gave the order. Immediately, the entire Dao sect began to move. First were the elders with real power, such as the technique imparting, law enforcing, treasure of abundance, life lantern, and Dao soldier. The sect leader, the vice sect leader, and all the true disciples of the Dao sect. At this moment, they all moved and occupied the center of the Dao chaotic world below the Dao list. Come! Then Taoist Yi called out softly and waved his hand. The next moment, the void was pulled open like a curtain. In the boundless space-time, a broken stone tablet flew through the air and landed in the middle of the crowd. Even though this stone tablet seemed to be slightly damaged and its surface was even covered in numerous hideous cracks, but in terms of aura, it wasn't the slightest bit inferior to the Dao insight rankings above him. Obviously, this was the other level 4 treasure of the Dao sect. However, looking at the marks on it, one could imagine how dangerous the Dao sect's patriarch had been through back then. On the stone tablet, apart from the marks that had yet to heal, one could see the brilliant words engraved on it. Suppress, suppress, suppress. The 7 words caused the Dao on the battle tablet to be awe-inspiring. When it broke out of the tablet, it could suppress and seal everything, as if it contained a terrifying sealing will. Whether it was the laws of space-time, fate, cause and effect, divine emperors, or even venerable sovereigns, they could all be suppressed. It was really killing people, Buddhas, and demons. As long as he stood in front of them, he would suppress them. This was the suppression tablet. Not to mention facing it, Even looking at it seemed to be able to suppress one. This was the treasure of the Tao, Sek's patriarch back then. He mainly cultivated the Tao, Sek's Tao will. In fact, Fang Qingshan had seen this item in the past, although it wasn't the original body. In the secret vault of the Tao, Sect, the old man who was dozing off in front of the star-picking tower was the artifact spirit of the suppression tablet, just like the Tao child. As the only level 4 treasure of the Tao, Sect, it naturally had the effect of suppressing providence. At this moment, Taoist Yi had invited it out and activated it together with the Tao list to suppress the fluctuating providence. However, at the same time, they used the basic cultivation technique of the Tao Sect, the infinite Tao Sutra. Their auras were connected, and they chanted the fundamental Tao Sutra of the Tao Sect, just like the Tao Te Ching to the Ren school and the Diamond Sutra to the Buddhist sect. The primordial chaos was born. The primordial chaos was broken, and the heavens were formed. The heavens were formed, and the great Tao was born. The Tao was born, and the will was born. The Tao gave birth to all things, and all things were born. Chapter 1633. Don't look at how useless Tao scriptures are. Just like the Tao Te Ching, it had almost become a commonplace item in Fang Qingshan's previous life. Anyone could recite a few sentences of it. The Tao could be said to be extraordinary, and the name could be said to be extraordinary. However, in addition to cultivating one's mind, one had to really read it. Otherwise, it would have no effect at all. In fact, the true function of this item was extraordinary. It was not inferior to an emperor-level cultivation technique. If one wanted to establish a force with an orderly inheritance, they would have to meet all sorts of conditions. Wealth, companions, techniques, land, resources, talents, Tao techniques, and a sect would have to be fulfilled. It was impossible to determine which of these 4 was the most important, because none of them could be missing. Tao techniques could be separated into Tao and techniques. Techniques naturally referred to inherited cultivation techniques, such as Fang Qingshan's all-heaven Tao validation technique. As for Tao, it referred to books like the Tao Te Ching and the Diamond Sutra. Although it was usually useless, once it unleashed its power, it had the effect of stabilizing the universe. As Taoist Yi took the lead and recited the first sentence of the Tao Te Ching, the vice sect leader, the elders with real power, and the true disciples began to recite it in unison. Everyone's voices were in unison. They didn't use any magic power, but their voices seemed to have touched upon an indescribable, profound meaning, giving their voices an indescribable charm. Although they were just chanting in unison, it was as if everyone was casting sound wave divine art with all their strength. At that moment, their voices resounded in the sky above the Tao Sect, and even penetrated the Tao chaotic world to the outside world. The Tao chaotic world and the nearby boundless void could hear their voices clearly. At that moment, the Tao Sect, which had been in an uproar due to the fluctuation of providence and the disorder of the laws, instantly calmed down. It was as if everyone had turned into a person who would remain unfazed even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of them, and an elk who would not blink even if it was on the left. At that moment, all the disciples who came to their senses fell to the ground and recited the Tao Sect's fundamental Tao scripture in unison, following Taoist Yi's voice. At the same time, the ceiling tablet naturally shone brightly. It was as if everyone in the Tao Sect had activated it, unleashing the astonishing might of a level 4 supreme treasure. A ray of light soared into the sky and charged straight for the Tao ranking. In an instant, countless mysterious images appeared in the surroundings. There were all sorts of objects and living beings. These images seemed to be images of what the ceiling obelisk had experienced before and were then engraved onto the ceiling obelisk. Demons, ghosts, immortals, Buddhas, holy spirits, weapons, magical treasures, nomological powers, natural disasters, perilous lands, there was nothing it couldn't suppress. For a moment, The violent power of providence that had engulfed the entire Tao sect seemed to show signs of gradually calming down. A list and a stone tablet stood in the air. No matter how violent and terrifying the ripples were or how powerful they were unable to overturn the situation under the combination of the two treasures. After all, the Tao Insight ranking itself was a precious treasure of karmic luck, a precious treasure that specialized in suppressing karmic luck. The fluctuation of luck just happened to be in his hands. It could be said that he had his own specialization. Similarly, the sealing obelisk was the same. It sealed and suppressed everything and happened to restrain these fluctuations. The combination of the two was like adding wings to a tiger. No matter how powerful the fluctuations were, they were still firmly suppressed and unable to overturn them. It was like a warship in the middle of the ocean. No matter how strong the waves were, they could not overturn the ship. No matter how strong the wind and rain were, they would remain unmoved, like a cool breeze caressing their faces. The movement of the Tao sect was too big. First, the fluctuation of luck swept across the entire Tao chaotic world. The nomological laws were in chaos, and there was almost a huge mess. Then, 2 level 4 supreme treasures appeared and suppressed the scene, which was even more terrifying. After all, Emperor-level strength and level 4 supreme treasures were all trump cards. They cannot be used easily unless it was the most critical moment. Once they were used, something earth-shattering must have happened. Then they saw the Supreme Elder of the Tao sect leading a group of ancient peak god emperors out. For a time, all the forces in the myriad heavens and realms that were close to the Tao sect were shocked once again. They had no idea what was going on. Especially compared to the last time, the movement of the Tao sect this time seemed to be even bigger. There had been a lot of movements in the Tao sect recently. They wondered if someone had provoked them again. Although everyone wanted to know the specific situation, no one dared to act rashly. At this time, the slightest carelessness could become the fuse. The entire Tao sect was like a volcano that was about to explode. Fang Qingshan and the Heavenly Emperor of Xingyi naturally did not know about this. Even if they knew, they would not care. The Heavenly Emperor of Xingyi only cared about one thing at this moment, and that was to perfectly possess Fang Qingshan. After all, there were many things waiting for him next. He had to carefully deal with the possible changes in the Tao sect, take advantage of the Tao sect's heritage, break through to the Emperor level, restore the glory of the past, and obtain a level 4 supreme treasure through stone gambling. As for Fang Qingshan, he did not think so far ahead. He only cared about one thing, and that was to give the Heavenly Emperor of Xingyi a fatal blow. It was either succeed or die trying. If he succeeded, everything would be fine. If he failed, everything would be over. Although he had planned for a long time and succeeded in luring the Heavenly Emperor of Xingyi into his trap, he did not think that victory was in his grasp like the Heavenly Emperor of Xingyi. After all, no one knew what would happen until the very last moment. Time passed minute by minute. At this moment, Fang Qingshan finally understood what it meant to pass a day like a year. It was not 1 or 2 years, but hundreds or even thousands of years. Fortunately, the last moment was about to arrive. The true spirit was the core essence of the soul. It was the most quintessential existence, and was the essence that could only be condensed by a true powerhouse. As long as the true spirit was not destroyed, one would not truly die. Even if the void collapsed, as long as the true spirit existed, one would not truly die. This was also the reason why Fang Qingshan's physique, magic power, laws, and primordial spirit were about to be replaced and devoured by the Heavenly Emperor of Xingyi. However, Fang Qingshan was still alive and well. In other words, to kill the Heavenly Emperor of Xingyi, one had to completely destroy his true spirit. If it was in the past, this naturally wouldn't have been so easy. After all, the true spirit was the core existence. It was hidden within the physique, primordial spirit, and laws. To destroy the true spirit, one had to first destroy the physical body, primordial spirit, and laws. Only then would one be able to come into contact with the true spirit. Only by destroying the true spirit would it be considered a true death. Fortunately, in order to perfectly possess Fang Qingshan this time, the heavenly emperor of Xingyi had sent his true spirit into Fang Qingshan's body. This gave Fang Qingshan a great opportunity. Chapter 1634. The real spirit was a person's most important lifeblood. It was even more important than the physical body, magic power, and primordial spirit, which were represented by essence, qi, and spirit. If the real spirit was still there, even if the physical body collapsed, the magic power dissipated, and the primordial spirit was destroyed, it was still possible to revive. Correspondingly, the real spirit was also very fragile. The physical body could be refined and protected by precious treasures. The primordial spirit could also be protected by secret methods and treasures. However, the real spirit basically did not have any powerful secret methods. It could only be improved with the improvement of one's cultivation and life essence. Once it was injured, it was not easy to recover. In fact, the so-called Taoist injury referred to the real spirit being injured. Fortunately, he was the core of life, so he could mobilize all the forces of life, physical power, magic power, and primordial spirit with a single thought. Therefore, in general, the real spirit would not appear at all, and he did not need to attack or defend himself. Once the real spirit appeared, it must be the most critical moment. The Xingyi martial emperor dared to put a little real spirit into Fang Qingshan's body. First, he wanted to deceive everyone and perfectly merge with Fang Qingshan. Only by revealing a little real spirit and abandoning everything else could he merge with Fang Qingshan in the fastest and most perfect way and inherit his foundation. Second, he was relying on his higher cultivation than Fang Qingshan. Although the real spirit was separated from the physical body, the primordial spirit was very fragile and could be seriously injured. However, it depended on whose real spirit it was and who it was facing. It was like when Bodhidharma achieved Taoism. He stood there and let all the people in Jianghu attack him, but they could not hurt him. The stronger the essence, the stronger the real spirit in all aspects. Generally speaking, the real spirit of the human tribe was stronger than the dragon tribe when they were at the same cultivation level. Back then, the Xingyi martial emperor had fallen into the hands of the Dao Sex ancestor. Why did he not dare to attack? After all, the Dao Sex ancestor's body was completely strong enough to bear his strength. As a venerable emperor, his foundation and potential were naturally strong. The reason was very simple. Although the Dao Sex patriarch he faced was not as strong as him, the difference was not much. Especially at that time, he was already seriously injured, while the Dao Sex patriarch was at his peak. One was only an incomplete primordial spirit, while the other was a complete body. Once they fought, he would probably end up losing the bait. In the end, it ended up benefiting the Dao Sex patriarch. Even when he was at his peak, he would not dare to let his guard down when facing the Dao Sex patriarch, let alone a bit of his true spirit. Moreover, he didn't dare to arrogantly enter another venerable sovereign's body with his real spirit. This was like throwing a meat bun at a dog, and he wouldn't be able to return. However, Fang Qingshan was different. He wasn't even a venerable sovereign, so his true spirit couldn't be compared to the Xingyi martial emperors. Especially since the gap between venerable sovereigns and those who weren't venerable sovereigns was huge, the Xingyi martial emperor was confident that he could defeat everything with his strength and break all techniques with his strength. No matter how many tricks Fang Qingshan had up his sleeves, he was confident that he could suppress him by force. Moreover, Fang Qingshan's strongest trump card, the timeless arc, had been suppressed by him in advance. How could he turn the tables? Moreover, as an ancient venerable sovereign, the Xingyi martial emperor had experienced many things. He also knew that even a lion would use its full strength to catch a rabbit. Although only a bit of his true spirit had entered his body, his enormous, pure, and supreme emperor source energy had spread throughout Fang Qingshan's body. His body, primordial spirit, and divine laws were all contaminated, devoured, and refined by his power. In this way, even if Feng Qingshan had other tricks, as long as he controlled his essence, qi, and spirit, he couldn't jump around. This was also the reason why Feng Qingshan didn't fight at the beginning. This was the Xingyi martial emperor's precaution against him, and it was also the reason why he beat him at his own game. The Xingyi martial emperor had suppressed his essence, qi, and spirit, but at the same time, his essence, qi, and spirit were entangled with Feng Qingshan's essence, qi, and spirit. Before the Xingyi martial emperor's essence was completely absorbed, Feng Qingshan could still resist. At least, he could buy some time and cause some trouble for the Xingyi martial emperor. As for the Xingyi martial emperor, who had relied on his true spirit to suppress Feng Qingshan's true spirit, he also had an emperor-level Dao intent as his trump card. In fact, the Xingyi martial emperor hadn't done anything wrong. He was decisive, and he attacked when he had to. He was decisive and cautious, calculating the heavens and the earth, calculating everything. The only problem was that he had underestimated Feng Qingshan. However, who would have thought that apart from the Timeless Arc, he actually had an emperor-level Dao intent theurgy? Most importantly, he had such great willpower and boldness to plot against a venerable sovereign. It should be known that this was like dancing with knives and swords. If he was the slightest bit careless, he would be consigned to eternal damnation. Of course, wealth came from danger. If you wanted to wear the crown, you had to bear its weight. If you wanted to gain something, you naturally had to pay the price. In order to achieve the Tao, didn't the Sword Emperor of Storm also risk his life to survive? He recklessly charged toward the natural disasters. Wherever there were natural disasters, there would be his shadow. Often, he would be injured even before he had recovered from his previous injuries. Fortunately, he had survived. He just didn't know if Feng Qingshan could get what he wanted. However, the success rate should be very high. He would give the Xingyi martial emperor a taste of his own medicine. The Xingyi martial emperor had previously caught Feng Qingshan off guard. At this moment, he also beat him at his own game and caught him off guard. Especially at this moment, the Xingyi martial emperor's source power had already mixed with Feng Qingshan's source power. Only his true spirit existed. However, the Xingyi martial emperor's emperor-level Dao intent was equivalent to an all-out attack from the Dao intent sect's great ancestor. Even an ordinary venerable sovereign could be seriously injured if they were not careful. Not to mention that he was just a true spirit. Putting all this aside, the Xingyi martial emperor's source power was gradually being guided by the Xingyi martial emperor's true spirit into Feng Qingshan's body. Feng Qingshan's primordial spirit and divine law were also being devoured by his true spirit and divine law. Although it was a bit slow, it couldn't be compared to devouring it all at once. It would be a time-consuming process that might take years or even decades to complete. Although it would take a long time, if it was completed, the harvest would be extremely shocking. Perhaps when the two completely merged and became indistinguishable, Feng Qingshan's or the Xingyi martial emperor's cultivation could directly break through the peak of divine emperor realm. It would not be a problem for him to even become a half-step sovereign. As for why he didn't directly become a sovereign, it was because breaking through to sovereign was different from other breakthroughs. It required a flash of insight. Otherwise, even if he had sovereign-level Dharma power, sovereign-level primordial spirit, and his battle prowess had also reached the sovereign level, he was still not at the sovereign level. However, for the Xingyi martial emperor, breaking through to the sovereign level was not too difficult. After all, he and Feng Qingshan's foundation was there for all to see. Most importantly, he had broken through before. It would definitely be easier for him to do it again than for others. Chapter 1635. In fact, this was the effect of the Emperor's Stone. The Emperor's Stone was someone else's breakthrough experience, but the Xingyi Great Emperor had to start all over again. This feeling was naturally more profound. Therefore, for him, breaking through to Venerable Emperor, or even Peak Venerable Emperor, and recovering to his peak was not difficult at all. It was just a matter of time. However, to him, this was not the life that he wanted to live. Because if he followed the original path, breaking through to Venerable Emperor and recovering to peak Venerable Emperor, so what? There would only be a Xing Great Emperor. If this was the case, what difference would the final result be from the past? Living one more life? This was obviously not what he wanted to see. If it was just for his lifespan, he would not have taken the risk back then. After all, as long as there were no accidents, the lifespan of a venerable emperor was longer than that of the infinite void. They would not perish even if the heavens and earth perished. For him, what he really wanted was to break through the shackles and break through to a higher cultivation level. Naturally, he needed to lay a deeper foundation for this. This was also why he chose Fong Qingshan. Although it was a freak accident, this was indeed a chance for him. After so many years in Jiaxing Lu, there were many excellent disciples who had entered the Dao Yi sect's secret vault, including Qian Duoduo, Zhuge Jin, and even Taoist Yi. He could choose one or two of them. However, he did not do so. First of all, although he had seized a chance at the last moment to enter the amplification regulation, his body had still suffered great damage. There was the backlash of the Great Tao, and there were also attacks from his opponents. Therefore, he had been constantly recovering from the injuries caused by the backlash of the Great Way and the attacks of his opponents. Therefore, he could not stay awake all the time. On the other hand, although Zhuge Jin and the others were good, they did not meet his requirements. They were not suitable candidates for him. The more excellent the candidate, the better. The best candidate was someone who could bear an emperor-level source. The most important thing was that they had enough potential. Although Zhuge Jin and the others were pretty good, it was obvious that their potential was not very great. At least, the possibility of them becoming venerable sovereigns was almost negligible. If they did not encounter any great opportunities, they would probably remain at this level for the rest of their lives. Even Taoist Yi was the same. Of course, the Xingyi Emperor also understood that it was impossible to find someone who could satisfy him. This was because someone with enough potential would definitely not be able to bear the power of the Emperor's source. Moreover, the person who could bear his power would affect the success rate of his possession. After all, living beings weren't inanimate objects. They would resist. If he used too much power, not only would he fail to achieve his goal, but he would also be taken advantage of by others. It was as if the Dao sect's patriarch had reached the standard, but he did not dare to act rashly. Hence, after he recovered from his injuries, he was prepared to settle for the next best thing. After all, the Dao sect was just SOSO. Before Fong Qingshan, there was no one who could satisfy him. The best was Taoist Yi. If he continued to stay in Jiaxing Lu, he would only waste his time. Fortunately, his own potential was not small, and he had reached the peak of the Emperor class. As long as he found someone with the same potential as Taoist Yi, there was no need to take risks. There was also no need to wait any longer. After all, he still had the amplification law. As long as he started over again and maintained his original level, as long as he integrated the amplification law into his body, he would definitely be able to improve further after he recovered his previous cultivation level. After all, his original plan was to integrate the amplification law into his body. On one hand, he would increase his combat power, and on the other, he would be able to adapt to the feeling and experience of Dao integration. If he hadn't severed the amplification law, which resulted in the backlash of the Great Path, he might have already succeeded in Dao integration. As for the backlash of the Great Path, apart from the physical damage, it was mainly due to the weakening of his luck. Heaven and earth worked together, but the hero lost his freedom. It was precisely because his luck had fallen to rock bottom that his nemesis had rushed over when he was suffering from the backlash of the Great Path. Fortunately, he had managed to seize a slim chance of survival after narrowly escaping death. Although he had suffered heavy losses, the backlash of the Great Path had finally passed. If he could start over again and integrate the amplification law into his body in advance, it would be equivalent to a successful Dao integration. In the future, he would naturally be able to achieve twice the results with half the effort. It was also needless to say that his combat power had increased. Most importantly, he had integrated the amplification law in advance. His foundation and potential had increased, and he had become the darling of the great path. As such, his cultivation would be smoother. Not only would he be able to turn misfortunes into blessings, but his luck would also be stronger, and he would encounter more opportunities. The bottleneck would be thinner, and the difficulty of breaking through would be lower. However, he had not expected that, just as the divine divination emperor had predicted, misfortune would turn into bliss. He had actually encountered an excellent vessel like Fong Qingshan. It was truly an unprecedented opportunity. Although he had a slim chance of survival, the risk had been worth it. Before he could settle for the next best thing, he had sent Fong Qingshan to his mouth. Fong Qingshan's talent might not be better than the Xingyi emperors in his previous life, but he was basically the best in the entire Dao sect. Most importantly, he had the timeless arc, and the timeless arc's foundation was very strong. In addition, he had the stone gambling skill, the all-heaven chessboard, the amplification law, and so on. The Xingyi emperor had reason and confidence to believe that as long as he played his trump card well, he would definitely surpass his previous life. However, although the opportunity was good, he could not act rashly, especially his foundation. Skyscrapers were built from the ground up. The strength of his foundation would determine how high he could reach in the future. Although he had been a top-level venerable emperor in his previous life, there was still a big gap between him and the All-Beast Emperor. In addition to the All-Beast Emperor's luck, his foundation was not as good as the All-Beast Emperor's. Therefore, in this life, the Xingyi Emperor had to pay more attention to his foundation. Even if he took a little longer and spent a little more time, it was better than regretting it in the future. If he had not been unable to improve in the past, he would not have rashly attempted Dao integration. If he had been a little stronger, wouldn't it have been less dangerous and the success rate would have been higher? Didn't he know that Dao integration was very dangerous? The answer was yes. However, what was the use of knowing? He had no choice. He was forced to do it, because if he did not have an opportunity, he would not be able to improve much even if he continued to wait. As for waiting, when would he reach the end? As for opportunities, his luck had never been good. Otherwise, as a peak venerable emperor, he would only have a level 4 high-grade supreme treasure. Chapter 1636. One's foundation determined one's upper limit. In addition, there were no additional opportunities. Once one reached a certain level, one would be unable to advance any further, not even the slightest bit. Therefore, the Xingyi martial emperor could only take a risk and try to break through the level by force. Unfortunately, the idea was beautiful, but the reality was cruel. In the end, he failed at the last step. However, this was normal. If path unification was really that easy, then so many venerable sovereigns in all the worlds would not have died because of it. Because of this, they would not have been able to make any progress and muddle through. However, it was different this time. He had started all over again and was given another chance. If he improved from the beginning, he would definitely be stronger in the future. The weaker one's foundation was, the easier it was to improve. The higher one's cultivation base, the harder it was to improve. This was why it was easier to turn a small boat around. However, when he was weak, he only wanted to improve quickly. He thought that the higher his cultivation base, the easier it would be for him to get opportunities, and then he would try to make up for it. Little did he know that once he missed this opportunity, it would not be as easy as he thought. Because improving one's foundation was not as simple as improving one's cultivation base or breaking through the bottleneck. It was even more difficult than healing one's Dao injury. Without opportunities like the eternal blessing, it was impossible to even think about it. Therefore, in the end, because one's foundation could not make up for it, one's cultivation base could not improve, and there was nothing he could do. He reaped what he sowed. It was all because of the karma he had sown. But then again, it was different this time. First of all, although Fong Qingshan's cultivation base had reached the late God Emperor stage, his foundation was very solid, completely beyond the Xingyi martial emperor's imagination. In theory, Fong Qingshan's cultivation base should be a little weak, since his cultivation base had improved so fast. But on the contrary, his foundation was as solid as a rock. Even the Xingyi martial emperor could not compare to it in the past. After all, his cultivation base had been upgraded along with the eternal heavenly vessel. Every eternal blessing he had received was a way to strengthen his foundation, so it was only natural that his foundation wouldn't be shaky. Secondly, the Xingyi martial emperor and Fang Qingshan combined had an effect far greater than two. After all, both his emperor-level source power and his experience as a peak emperor could be considered an unimaginable wealth. Although Fang Qingshan's cultivation base had risen to the late stage of God Emperor, he had not yet broken through to the venerable emperor realm. Therefore, he still had a chance to strengthen his cultivation base. Even with the temperament that the Xingyi great emperor had tempered over the years, he couldn't help but feel excited when he thought of this. Fusion, devour, digestion. The Xingyi emperor wasn't in a hurry to break through. Instead, he devoured Fang Qingshan's foundation while digesting it. Then, he fused it together, making it his own. Get rid of the weeds and retain the essentials, making the foundation unprecedentedly sturdy. Just like Fang Qingshan's timeless Arkansas, he wasn't worried that his foundation would be too strong and that it would be too difficult for him to break through. Sometimes, it wasn't that some people didn't want to have a stronger foundation, but the stronger the foundation, the more difficult it was to break through. It wasn't that there weren't people who were stuck in a realm because their foundations were too solid. But the Xingyi great emperor didn't have this problem at all. Because of his own experience and the power of the eternal blessing, it was a piece of cake for him. He was only worried that his foundation wasn't strong. He didn't have to worry about it being too strong. With the foundation of the timeless ark, no matter how strong the foundation was, the eternal blessing could break through the bottleneck. The body was strengthening, the magic power was compressing, the nomological laws were changing, and the primordial spirit was being refined. But what the Xingyi great emperor cared about the most was the life essence that had evolved in Fang Qingshan's body. It was even stronger than a venerable emperor. It wasn't the power that was strong, but the potential. It was like two snakes, one with nascent soul cultivation and the other with golden core cultivation. But the golden core snake had the bloodline of a real dragon. This was a difference in the nature of the two. The change in Fang Qingshan's life essence was the same. He already had the life essence of a remnant of primordial world. The more potential he had, the greater the height he could reach in the future. The more he could break through the infinite void, the greater the chance of breaking through the restrictions of the universe. Although it might only be a little, every little bit was hope. Others couldn't even see that little bit of hope. Of course, the most important thing was the true spirit. After all, the true spirit was a person's core password. Only by completely devouring Fang Qingshan's true spirit and controlling it would he be able to control the body. When that happened, he would be Fang Qingshan and the Xingyi great emperor. Otherwise, even if he obtained the body that had evolved, it would just be an illusion. However, what made the Xingyi emperor feel strange was that even though he had devoured so much of Fang Qingshan's primordial spirit, laws, physique, and magic power, he still couldn't sense the existence of Fang Qingshan's true spirit. He didn't know where Fang Qingshan was hiding. Haha, still playing hide-and-seek with me? It's pointless struggling. The Xingyi great emperor chuckled. He didn't care too much. This was just a flash of inspiration in his mind. He didn't pay much attention to it. The transformation of his body was almost complete, the nomological laws were almost complete, and the devouring of his primordial spirit was almost complete. Everything was about to be completed. Only his true spirit was left. No matter what methods he had, he was just a grasshopper at the end of autumn. He couldn't do anything. After all, the true spirit was different from the physical body and primordial spirit. It was protected by secret techniques, divine abilities, and spirit treasures. He could only use his essence, qi, and spirit to protect himself. Otherwise, he could only rely on his nature to resist. His essence, qi, and spirit had already been fused and couldn't be moved. Fang Qingshan's true spirit definitely wouldn't be able to resist the Xingyi great emperor's true spirit. Therefore, he wasn't worried at all. Unfortunately, the Xingyi Heavenly Emperor had forgotten that before the final verdict was made, everything was still possible. A man who had traveled 100 miles was halfway to his destination, and his efforts would be wasted. He had calculated everything, but he still hadn't expected Fang Qingshan to have an emperor-level Dao with divine ability. Fang Qingshan had even dared to trick him. The most important thing was that he had misunderstood the divine divination Great Emperor's words. 9 deaths and 1 life. Extreme misfortune turned to bliss. Opportunity and crisis. Actually, this was normal. 9 deaths and 1 life. He thought that it was just cutting his Dao. Extreme misfortune turned to bliss. He thought that he had survived the hands of his enemies. However, he didn't expect that in the 9 deaths and 1 life, apart from the backlash of the Great Dao, his luck would also fall, attracting his enemies. Extreme misfortune turned to bliss. Not only did he grasp a chance of survival, but he also sent Fang Qingshan a potential stock. He had misunderstood it once, but he couldn't possibly misunderstand it twice. Unfortunately, he didn't think about how he could be right the second time if he was wrong the first time. Chapter 16:37. The Xingyi Emperor's thoughts were perfect. He was very glad that Fang Qingshan had come. He thought that Fang Qingshan's appearance was the true blessing that the divine divination emperor had mentioned. However, he had completely forgotten that the Great Dao's backlash wasn't referring to the Great Dao's backlash. It was referring to the enemies that were attracted by the backlash of fate. The blessing wasn't referring to Fang Qingshan either. It was referring to Fang Qingshan's survival from the hands of his enemies. However, the fatal point was that he had forgotten about the last 2 sentences. Opportunity and crisis were 2 sides of the same coin. He was like a tyrant in the midst of storm. He only knew that the golden Shilin was a small pond and that it would transform into a dragon in the face of a storm. However, he hadn't expected that there would be a change in the 9 heavens dragon roar. Of course, that was because he hadn't said it all at once. However, the Xingyi Emperor had completely missed the last 2 sentences. This was because he had placed the opportunity and crisis on the severing Dao. However, he hadn't expected that the opportunity and crisis were talking about seizing Fang Qingshan's body. If he succeeded in seizing Fang Qingshan's body, he would have seized the opportunity. However, if he failed, it would be a crisis. However, in the Xingyi Emperor's eyes, seizing Fang Qingshan's body wouldn't be dangerous at all. After all, no matter if it was in terms of his strength or his cautiousness, there was no room for error. Unfortunately, all of this was just his wishful thinking. He only thought that he had carefully deprived Fang Qingshan of his essence, qi, and spirit. He thought that his true spirit was enough to suppress Fang Qingshan's true spirit. He thought that he had stabilized the timeless arc, the celestial chessboard, and the reincarnation mirror. That way, Fang Qingshan wouldn't be able to overturn the heavens. Unfortunately, he didn't know that Fang Qingshan still had a life-saving technique that the Dao Will Sex Patriarch had left for him. Fang Qingshan could still endure until he was at his wit's end. This was all to make him relax and reveal a flaw. Putting all of this aside, as the Xingyi Emperor got closer and closer to his true spirit, the excruciating pain that made Fang Qingshan wish he was dead disappeared. However, it didn't disappear. Instead, he became numb. Not only did Fang Qingshan not feel the slightest numbness towards this, he even took the initiative to feel the pain in order to get rid of the numbness. Only by doing this could he ensure that his mind wouldn't sink into the pain. His entire heart was in his throat. He knew that the final moment was about to arrive. Whether he lived or died, whether he succeeded or failed, it all depended on this final moment. Don't struggle, and don't think that something unexpected will happen. Just obediently let me devour you. I promise that in the future, if I have the ability and the opportunity, I will definitely revive you. Relax. The Xingyi Heavenly Emperor could already see Fang Qingshan's true spirit. He was overjoyed. He was still thinking about where Fang Qingshan had hidden his true spirit, but it turned out that it was only wrapped in the deepest part of his primordial spirit. What he didn't know was that Fang Qingshan had purposely exposed it. Firstly, his primordial spirit was about to be completely devoured, so it was useless to not expose his true spirit. Because if he didn't expose his true spirit, he would have to expose his Emperor-level Wei intent. Previously, Fang Qingshan had used his Emperor-level Wei intent to cover his true spirit. Now, he was using his true spirit to cover his Emperor-level Wei intent. Moreover, only by exposing his true spirit could the Xingyi Heavenly Emperor relax even more. As expected, when the Xingyi Heavenly Emperor saw Fang Qingshan's true spirit, he was completely relieved. Seeing that Fang Qingshan was unable to resist and could only watch as the Xingyi Heavenly Emperor moved closer and closer to devour his true spirit, the Xingyi Heavenly Emperor nodded in satisfaction. He had succeeded. He was about to succeed. As long as he devoured Fang Qingshan's true spirit, he would be considered to have completely succeeded in his possession. As long as he spent a little more time digesting it, he would be able to see the day when he would be able to recover to the peak of the Emperor realm and break through the bottleneck of the myriad worlds. At this moment, the Xingyi Heavenly Emperor was excited and happy, just like when he had broken through to the peak of the Emperor realm. His joy was intoxicating. At this moment, Fang Qingshan was also excited, but at the same time, he was nervous and trembling. One strike, because he only had the power for one strike. At this moment, as the primordial spirits fused, the Xingyi Heavenly Emperor sensed his secret, and Fang Qingshan could also vaguely sense some of the Xingyi Heavenly Emperor's secrets. However, he didn't care about this, because as his primordial spirit was devoured, his true spirit was about to be devoured. His consciousness started to become blurry, and he felt as if he had fallen into an abyss of despair. He couldn't resist. The gap between their levels was too big. Even if he wanted to put his life on the line, he couldn't. That feeling was extremely hopeless. This was the last feeling the Xingyi Heavenly Emperor sensed from Fang Qingshan's thoughts. Yes, even at this moment, he still hadn't made a move. He was still trying to paralyze the Xingyi Heavenly Emperor. After all, the Xingyi Heavenly Emperor was a peak emperor. He had never faced a peak emperor before, let alone an emperor. Timeless arc? Useless. Heavenly chessboard? Useless too. Self-destruction? Still useless. All his strength and trump cards were suppressed by the Xingyi Heavenly Emperor. In the end, he was still too weak in front of an Emperor Realm expert, and he couldn't resist at all. If he had been more decisive in the beginning, he wouldn't have placed his hopes on the Daoul sect. He would have exploded his body, magic power, primordial spirit, laws, and true spirit, even if he couldn't kill the Xingyi Heavenly Emperor. But he could have perished together with the Xingyi Heavenly Emperor. Sensing Fang Qingshan's final thoughts, the Xingyi Heavenly Emperor couldn't help but snort. If he had done this in the beginning, he wouldn't have integrated the Origin Emperor power at most, and would have used all his strength to suppress his resistance. It would just be a little more troublesome in the future for the integration, and it would be completely useless. However, at the same time, the Xingyi Heavenly Emperor completely relaxed and began to completely integrate and devour. And Fang Qingshan was also shocked. He could also sense the Xingyi Heavenly Emperor's thoughts. He couldn't help but feel lucky that he hadn't made a move in the beginning. Otherwise, even if he had self-destructed, the power generated in the Emperor Realm Dao intent would still have been a little lacking, and if he had failed, he would have died. At the same time, he finally felt that the best moment had arrived. Counterattack. In an instant, Fang Qingshan didn't hesitate at all, and directly displayed the Emperor Realm Dao intent. Damn it! The Xingyi Heavenly Emperor, who was originally immersed in his last moments of joy, sensed the Emperor Realm Dao intent the moment it manifested. When he came back to his senses, he was instantly enraged, and his expression changed. He had never imagined that Fang Qingshan would have such a move, and that he would use it now. How is this possible? How dare he? How could he have such a move? At this moment, the Xingyi Heavenly Emperor's mind was in a mess. However, this didn't affect him from making a move. In an instant, he started to mobilize the Emperor Realm power that he had dispersed into Fang Qingshan's body. Unfortunately, it was all too late. The moment the Xingyi Heavenly Emperor mobilized, Fang Qingshan's heart also moved. In an instant, the Xingyi Heavenly Emperor's origin power stagnated, as if it had been dragged into a whirlpool. Chapter 1638. How is this possible? The Emperor of Xingyi panicked a little when he sensed this. It was just like how Fang Qingshan had used the all-heaven chessboard only to discover that it was useless. Especially at this critical moment of life and death, any unforeseen event would be fatal. The Emperor of Xingyi quickly understood what was going on. His face turned ashen as he looked at Fang Qingshan and the Emperor-level Dao intent with a murderous glint in his eyes. He hadn't expected that the essence, qi, and spirit he had used to suppress Fang Qingshan would end up becoming a stumbling block for him. Although Fang Qingshan's disturbances didn't cause him too much trouble, he couldn't use these origin powers for a moment because they were entangled with Fang Qingshan's origin powers. Furthermore, he had not completely refined Fang Qingshan's will. As a result, the power that he could wield like an arm now felt like someone was holding him back. This was one of the reasons why Fang Qingshan was willing to take such a huge risk before making his move. Although he couldn't use the essence, qi, and spirit, the Emperor of Xingyi believed that he could only use his true spirit to fight him head-on. However, he didn't know that even though Fang Qingshan couldn't use the essence, qi, and spirit to attack, the Emperor of Xingyi couldn't either. At the very least, the Emperor of Xingyi wouldn't be able to use his essence, qi, and spirit in a short period of time. Although their origin energy had yet to fuse completely, they had already reached the point where they were connected to each other. With a single thought, Fang Qingshan could cause problems in the Emperor of Xingyi's origin powers. It was as if the command system had malfunctioned. Even if it was only for a moment, when experts fought, life and death could be decided in a moment. Therefore, even a lion would use its full strength to catch a rabbit. You wouldn't know if a moment of carelessness could cost you your life. If that was the case, then, just as the Emperor of Xingyi had expected, Fang Qingshan would still be crushed to a pulp by relying on his true spirit. However, the key was that Fang Qingshan still had the Emperor-level Dao intent, which was a trump card that could threaten the Emperor of Xingyi. This was completely out of the Xingyi Emperor's expectations. No matter how much he calculated, he didn't expect to miss out on so much. He had calculated essence, qi, and spirit. He had calculated the timeless arc, and he had calculated a life-and-death struggle. But it just so happened that he never imagined that Fang Qingshan actually possessed an Emperor-ranked Dao insight that was capable of posing a lethal threat to him. Similarly, he did not expect Fang Qingshan, a late-stage God Emperor, to have such a strong mind and courage. In such a critical moment, he was still able to remain absolutely calm and dare to plot against him, a peak Emperor venerable. Step by step, he was inviting the enemy into the jar, catching the turtle in the jar. Putting himself in Fang Qingshan's shoes, the Xingyi Emperor probably wouldn't dare to commit such a heinous crime. He also did not expect that the method he used to restrain Fang Qingshan out of caution and to guard against Fang Qingshan would actually become a trap of his own making and become his opponent's sharp blade to attack him. It was really Zhou Lang's brilliant plan to bring peace to the world, but he suffered a double loss. At this moment, the Xingyi Emperor's intestines turned green with regret. It was even more regretful than when he was devoured by the Great Way, when he cut his way and almost died because of his opponent. Because then, at least he could find an excuse to say that it was because he was devoured by the Great Way in advance, because his luck was weakened, and because his opponent was not weaker than him. He could even say that he was defeated by the Great Way by an opponent of the same level, so he would have no regrets even if he died. But now, facing Fang Qingshan, who was weaker than him, he failed miserably. What else could he say? If this spread out, he would definitely become a laughingstock. But these were all in the future. Now, what he had to deal with was the Emperor-ranked Dao inside attack that Fang Qingshan had prepared for a long time. Damn it, damn it. Soon, the Xingyi Emperor reacted. After all, he was a venerable emperor and had experienced countless dangers. So, Even though the situation had greatly exceeded his expectations, his expression still quickly stabilized, and he didn't panic in the face of danger as he stared coldly at Fang Qingshan and the Emperor-level will. Good, very good, very good. I'm afraid you're the first person who has successfully schemed against a venerable emperor without being a venerable emperor and brought me fatal trouble. Just this alone is enough for me to smile in the underworld. But do you think you can do anything to me just like that? You underestimate the power of a venerable emperor. Hearing this, Fang Qingshan's expression changed. Looking at the Xingyi emperor's expression, it seemed that the situation was beyond his expectations. Originally, he thought that as long as the Xingyi emperor's source energy was restrained, the Xingyi emperor's real spirit would definitely not be able to withstand the emperor-rank Dao inside attack. Now, it seemed that he still had strength left and a backup plan. Was he bluffing? A strong sense of uneasiness rose in Fang Qingshan's heart. However, before he could react, as soon as the Xingyi emperor's voice fell, an extremely powerful force instantly erupted from the Xingyi emperor's real spirit. In an instant, the emperor-ranked Dao insight that was about to fall was confined in Fang Qingshan's Naiwan palace. In an instant, before the emperor-ranked Dao insight, which originally contained the full power of the Dao sex ancestor, had time to shine, it suddenly stopped. It was as if time and space had frozen, and it could no longer move. Destroy. Then, as the Xingyi emperor shouted, the emperor-ranked Dao insight began to collapse and dissipate. Seeing this, Fang Qingshan's expression suddenly changed. Sure enough, his previous guess was confirmed. The Xingyi emperor really had a backup plan. Even if he was just a real spirit, he still had a secret method. I should have thought of this earlier. Fang Qingshan murmured to himself. After all, the Xingyi emperor was a venerable emperor, a peak venerable emperor who was even more powerful than the Dao sex ancestor. How could such an existence not have a backup plan? How could he not have one or two trump cards? No matter how much he thought about it, man proposes, God disposes. At this moment, Fang Qingshan felt the same way as the Xingyi emperor. If it was another place, another time, a hero would probably cherish a hero. Unfortunately, in this place, only one of them would survive. It's over. Fang Qingshan closed his eyes. Then, true despair began to spread in his heart. This despair was unprecedented. Back in the Fallen Dragon's secret realm, when the All-Heaven chessboard lost its effect, Fang Qingshan had felt despair. When the Xingyi emperor had first appeared, Fang Qingshan had also felt despair. However, this despair did not make him lose hope. However, at this moment, he really could not see any light at all. The emperor-ranked Dao insight, which he used as a trump card, was at least a medium venerable emperor's full power attack, but it had been crushed by the Xingyi emperor like an ant. At this moment, what else could he do? What else could be effective against an emperor-ranked Dao insight? The timeless arc, the all-heaven chessboard, the reincarnation mirror, magic power, primordial spirit law, physique, one-breath Sanqing, natal magical power. Unfortunately, Fang Qingshan did not find a way to turn the tables no matter how hard he thought. Chapter 1639. His heart was in a mess. At this moment, Fang Qingshan completely panicked. In fact, this was normal. Previously, when the Xingyi martial emperor was faced with the sudden appearance of the emperor-level Dao intent and was unable to use his origin energy, he had always panicked. Even a seasoned veteran like him was panicking, let alone a young man like Fang Qingshan. In fact, it wasn't just the Xingyi martial emperor or Fang Qingshan. Anyone else in the same situation would probably not fare any better. After all, this was a matter of life and death. One wrong step could lead to eternal damnation. However, Fang Qingshan didn't see it. Although the emperor-level Dao intent seemed to be useless and was crushed by the Xingyi martial emperor. However, it wasn't as if he didn't pay a price. After all, this was an all-out attack from the Dao sex patriarch. Even if he could use his origin energy, he wouldn't be unscathed when facing this attack, let alone now that he couldn't use his origin energy. The Xingyi emperor's true spirit, which was originally dazzling and supreme, had dimmed down at this moment. It had become corroded, and if one listened carefully, one could even hear crackling noises. If one looked closely, one would realize that there were fine cracks on the true spirit. This wasn't caused by the Emperor-level Tao intent. Or perhaps it wasn't completely caused by the Emperor-level Tao intent. The main reason was that he had suffered a backlash when he severed the Amplification Great Path and was attacked by his opponent. Although he had been repairing it all these years, it wasn't completely healed. At most, it looked fine on the surface. However, it was still riddled with holes on the inside. After all, Tao injuries weren't that easy to heal, especially when the Xingyi martial emperor was only left with his primordial spirit and was still trapped in the amplification law. Previously, the timeless arc, the all-heaven chessboard, the reincarnation mirror, and the integration of Fang Qingshan's origin had already consumed a lot of energy. He couldn't suppress his injuries as much as he wanted. At this moment, the Emperor-level Tao intent was the straw that broke the camel's back. No, not straw, but the Jingu Bang. This naturally caused his injuries to erupt. At this moment, even though the Xingyi Great Emperor looked as ferocious as a tiger, he was actually a paper tiger that could be broken with a single poke. The Xingyi Emperor no longer had a path of retreat. He could only take one last gamble and stake everything on this. If he still couldn't succeed this time, then what awaited him would be complete annihilation. And this time, he would not be as lucky as the last time. Because if the possession of Fang Qingshan failed, not to mention Fang Qingshan's counterattack, just the Tao wounds that were exposed now, without the suppression, would be enough to give him a fatal blow. Hence, after stopping and destroying Fang Qingshan's trump card, the Xingyi Emperor did not hesitate at all. He pounced towards Fang Qingshan's true spirit like a hungry wolf. He opened his mouth wide and was prepared to swallow Fang Qingshan. To shoot a man, first shoot the horse. To capture the bandits, first capture the ringleader. In order to prevent any accidents from happening again, he naturally had to destroy Fang Qingshan's true spirit as soon as possible. As long as his true spirit was destroyed, all other dangers could be resolved. Even if his Tao wounds were about to erupt, he could use the timeless arc to suppress them. In the future, with the eternal blessing, it would be a piece of cake for him to heal them. He was getting closer and closer. Just as Fang Qingshan was about to be swallowed, Fang Qingshan looked as though he had lost his soul. He was completely lifeless. He had no intention of resisting at all. It was as though he had given up all hope and was waiting for death. The Xingyi Emperor could not help but heave a sigh of relief. At this point, Fang Qingshan could not possibly still be numb. He could not possibly still have a trump card. He could not possibly. However, in reality, the Xingyi Emperor's worries were not unfounded. Blessings did not come in pairs, and misfortune did not come alone. Just as the Xingyi Emperor closed his mouth and was about to swallow Fang Qingshan, something strange happened. Screech! An attack so fast that even the Xingyi Emperor could not react to it instantly shot out from Fang Qingshan's true spirit. The friction in the air produced a deafening sound. If one could see clearly what it was, they would realize that it was neither an arrow nor a sword. It was a thorn, the mosquito dragon's thorn. At this point, the first person to react was none other than Mosquito Dauren. As a descendant of the primordial world, as his cultivation increased, he was able to unleash more and more miraculous abilities. Facing the Xingyi Emperor, Fang Qingshan had lost all hope. However, he did not. Firstly, his main body had taken the brunt of his despair. Secondly, as a descendant of the primordial world, he was naturally immune to the coercion of a sovereign. Therefore, he saw what Fang Qingshan had not noticed. Although he had not unleashed the full power of the sovereign Tao intent, it had still exposed the Xingyi Emperor's weakness. At this point, as long as he attacked, he would be overwhelmed. Therefore, at the last moment, he used his strongest talent, the Mosquito Dragon's Thorn. He was very confident that as long as he could hit the Xingyi Emperor, he might have a chance to turn the tables. Back then, Mosquito Dauren's talent had not been awakened so much. Back then, he had only just been born. Back then, he had not even become a perfected golden immortal. He had relied on the mosquito dragon's thorn to devour the goddess of turtle spirit, a peak-perfected golden immortal expert, and had even devoured the golden lotus of virtue, a top-notch connate defensive spiritual treasure. Now, although Mosquito Dorn's cultivation was not as good as Fong Qingshan's, he had also become a divine emperor after devouring a level 3 treasure. His awakened talent was much stronger than before. At this moment, the power of the mosquito dragon's thorn was unimaginable. Of course, the most important thing was the Xingyi Emperor's condition. A dragon in the shallows would be toyed with by prawns. A tiger in the plains would be bullied by dogs, catching the enemy off guard and catching them off guard. The Dao wound erupted. Therefore, Mosquito Dorn's attack was a fatal blow to him. Buzz! When the two collided, the sound of a huge bell rang out. Following that, the Xingyi Emperor's true spirit could not bear the burden of internal and external troubles. When it rains, it pours. When a ship is late, it hits the head. Crack! Crack! The crack that was initially just a thin crack instantly grew bigger and bigger at a speed visible to the naked eye. At a certain moment, it shattered. An extremely shrill scream came from the Xingyi Emperor's mouth. The pain was probably 10 times or even 100 times worse than what Fong Qingshan had experienced previously. Die! I want you dead. At this moment, the Xingyi Emperor had gone completely mad. He did not expect his true spirit to be destroyed by Fong Qingshan. With his true spirit broken, he was basically cut off from the Tao. This was because even with the eternal blessing, it was extremely difficult to repair it. Moreover, even if it was repaired, his foundation had suffered unprecedented damage. In the future, he could only reach the same height as in his previous life. Chapter 1640. To an ordinary person, reaching the pinnacle of the Xingyi Emperor's previous life was already a lifelong dream. It was something that they didn't even dare to think about. After all, he was an emperor, and a peak emperor at that. Although he was not a purple emperor, he was definitely a green or even blue emperor. However, the Xingyi martial emperor did not think it was good at all. Because so what if he reached the heights of his previous life? It was not as if he could not advance any further. It was not as if he could not integrate with the Tao, let alone break the shackles and break through the emperor realm to reach level 5. What was the point of not being able to do all this? Cutting off one's path to riches was like killing one's parents. Cutting off one's path to Tao was like fighting to the death. There was nothing more important in life than death. It was also said that one could die in peace if one understood the Tao in the morning. What kind of despair and pain would it be if one's path to Tao was severed? What kind of madness would it be? Fortunately, the Xingyi Heavenly Emperor knew that Fong Qingshan still had the Eternal Sky Ship. Furthermore, the foundation of the Eternal Sky Ship was unprecedentedly rich. Even if the Ancient One's eternal blessing couldn't heal his true spirit Tao injuries, it should be possible if he could advance to the Eternal Realm. As for the difficulty of advancing to the Eternal Realm, because of the stone gambling skill, it was not a dream. Because of this, the Xingyi Martial Emperor did not despair even though his true spirit had been destroyed. But even so, he began to no longer care about anything else. He immediately erupted, frantically mobilizing the Emperor-level origin energy that Fong Qingshan had messed around with earlier. He wanted to end things quickly. This was to regain his face and to reverse the situation. Roar, roar, roar. At this moment, the roars of tigers and dragons, the crowing of chickens, and the barking of dogs could be heard. The mighty bull demon, the 9-clawed golden dragon, the chaotic demonic ape, the world-devouring divine hound, and the other 12 peerless beasts were roaring. In the end, they combined into one and turned into a monstrous wave that swept towards Fong Qingshan, emitting a powerful aura of death and destruction. There was no doubt that these Emperor-level source powers were terrifying. Once hit, one would definitely die. The situation had once again become precarious. Although Mosquito Doran had destroyed the Xingyi Martial Emperor's true spirit with one stab, he had also suffered an unprecedented backlash and injury. If it were not for the fact that he was a primordial species, This attack would have been enough to take his life. Although he had survived, he obviously did not have the strength to fight anymore. Fortunately, his actions had awakened Feng Qingshan. To Feng Qingshan, there was now a glimmer of hope at the darkest hour of the night. At first, Qingshan was in despair. After all, he had prepared for so long and endured so much pain. Yet the emperor-level will of the way that he viewed as his trump card hadn't been able to kill him with a single strike. Instead, he had completely fallen into a hopeless situation. Previously, Mosquito Dorn's attack had dispelled the clouds and revealed the sun. Not only did it shatter the Xingyi martial emperor's true spirit, it also shattered his fear and despair. This made Feng Qingshan realize that a D-Zun was nothing more than this. It was possible to hurt a D-Zun without using emperor-level powers. It was not that he had no power to fight back. It was that he had the ability to reverse the situation. It was that the Xingyi martial emperor was at the end of his rope. It was, therefore, at this moment, the Xingyi martial emperor mobilized his emperor-level source powers. The 12 Xingyi martial emperors roared, and the emperor-level waves swept out. The situation seemed to be extremely dangerous. However, Feng Qingshan's face lit up with the light of victory. Cultivation cultivates the heart. As long as you don't admit defeat, no one can defeat you. Because as the Xingyi martial emperor's true spirit was destroyed, it wasn't just Feng Qingshan's fear and respect for the D-Zun that was destroyed. At the same time, the three treasures, the timeless ark, the all-heaven chessboard, and the mirror of reincarnation, could be mobilized by Feng Qingshan again. Therefore, although Mosquito Daoran was on the verge of death, Feng Qingshan had completely recovered. In particular, the timeless ark and the all-heaven chessboard could be mobilized. If these two treasures could be combined with the original body, Feng Qingshan's combat power would instantly soar. Even if he couldn't reach the emperor level, he would at least be able to fight back against the Xingyi martial emperor. He would be like a fish on a chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. At the same time, he could feel a majestic and familiar power outside the training ground. He seemed to be able to mobilize it. He believed that as long as he could summon this power, he would be able to turn the tide and save the building from collapse. He could completely turn the situation around and stabilize the situation. He dared to pull the emperor down from his horse, even if he was willing to be cut into pieces. At this point, there was no turning back. Regardless of whether it would work or not, he had to try. If he succeeded, everyone would be happy. Even if he failed, the result would not be worse than now. Feng Qingshan made up his mind. In the next moment, several auras that were of the same origin as Feng Qingshan, yet somewhat different, emanated from his body. Following that, the space behind him distorted, and two black and white figures suddenly appeared out of thin air, standing on either side of Feng Qingshan. Ichi Sanqing. This divine ability was something he had obtained from the ancient Haven Palace in the great world of rulers, and he had perfected it with his father's guidance. Because he first cultivated the 5 elemental laws, he was able to condense the 5 elements in one breath after transforming into his true body. After the natal law changed from the 5 elements to reincarnation, the one breath Sanqing naturally became the one breath reincarnation. Although the clones were not fixed, the effects were essentially the same. Following that, Feng Qingshan performed the Sanqing unification. The black and white reincarnation, Feng Qingshan exchanged a glance. Without any hesitation, they took a step forward and instantly stepped into Feng Qingshan's body. Then, his cultivation broke through from the late God Emperor realm to the peak God Emperor realm. Following that, the timeless arc manifested above Feng Qingshan's head and merged with his body. In the next moment, Feng Qingshan's cultivation skyrocketed again. This time, his cultivation broke through from the peak God Emperor realm to the half-step Emperor realm. Then, it was the reincarnation mirror and the all-heaven chessboard. The reincarnation mirror would not improve his cultivation, but it could strengthen his essence. Otherwise, it would not be good to improve his cultivation too much. The bucket was only so big. If there was too much water, it would either overflow or explode. Although the all-heaven chessboard did not make his cultivation break through from the half-step Emperor realm to the venerable Emperor realm, it made another step forward from the foundation of the half-step Emperor realm. After performing this series of actions, Fang Qingshan's eyes suddenly opened. In his pitch-black eyes, there was a deep divine light, and hundreds of chaotic worlds were floating in them. Every move he made revealed an indescribable power that spread out, causing the whole Mud-Pill Palace to shake. Alas! Even so, Fang Qingshan could not help but sigh. He did not break through to the venerable Emperor realm after all. Chapter 1641. Although Fang Qingshan had expected that he wouldn't be able to break through to venerable Emperor, but now that he was faced with this fact, he couldn't help but feel a little regretful. This was especially true at a moment of life and death. If he broke through to venerable Emperor, it would be a piece of cake to deal with the Xingyi Emperor. If he didn't break through to venerable Emperor, he would be able to deal with the Xingyi Emperor with his current cultivation. It wouldn't be like before, where he wouldn't be able to fight back and he could still fight back. But this wasn't what Fang Qingshan wanted. He and the Xingyi Emperor had the same idea. They both wanted to cut the Gordian knot quickly. The Xingyi Emperor's real spirit was broken and his Taoist injury backfired. But Fang Qingshan was afraid that the Xingyi Emperor would fight to the death. After all, this was his Mud-Pill Palace. Although he had the geographical advantage, once it was destroyed, the loss would be great. This was why there was a saying that one had to defend against enemies outside the country. But then again, it was normal that he hadn't broken through to the Emperor level. After all, there was a huge gap between the Emperor level and the non-Emperor level. Even though the Xingyi Emperor had Emperor-level Dharma power, body, primordial spirit, rules, real spirit, and combat power after successfully possessing him, he still couldn't become a venerable emperor in a short time. There were countless peak deity emperors in the myriad heavens. Even the Tao Will sect had hundreds of them. But those who could break through or had a chance of breaking through were less than 1 in 100. And those who could break through in the end were even less than 1 in 10. But if it wasn't, then it wasn't. Fang Qingshan wasn't too disappointed. First of all, this was an established fact that couldn't be changed. He could only learn to accept it. Moreover, although he hadn't broken through to venerable emperor, he had the combat power of a venerable emperor. Half-step to venerable emperor. Although he was only half-step to venerable emperor, he was still a little bit close to venerable emperor. Of course, the most important thing was that the Xingyi Emperor had used his source power to fuse with Fang Qingshan's essence, qi, and spirit, which had greatly improved their nature. Although it had been stripped away, Fang Qingshan's own power hadn't decreased much. As long as he had the fighting prowess of an emperor, it wouldn't be too difficult to deal with the Xingyi Great Emperor, whose true spirit had been shattered. Of course, the most important thing was not Fang Qingshan's own strength. Instead, it was the majestic and familiar power that he had sensed earlier. This power was different from his half-baked emperor-level combat power. Instead, he had truly reached the power of an emperor. In fact, he had not even just entered the emperor realm. He had at least reached the lower, middle, or even upper emperor realm. Tao Will ranking. Yes, the familiar and mighty aura that Fang Qingshan sensed through the Tao grounds was precisely the energy that belonged to the Tao Insight rankings. As the Tao Will sect's treasure that ensured the light from providence shone on it, the Tao Will rankings power was even stronger than the Tao Will sect's patriarch's treasure, the sealing tablet. Firstly, the treasure was at its peak, while the sealing tablet was heavily damaged by the death of the ancestor. Even if it didn't fall to 4 levels, it wasn't much better. Secondly, the Tao Will ranking was a treasure of light from providence. Just like the heavenly chessboard, as long as one had enough light from providence and the quality was high enough, one could advance quickly. However, a treasure like the sealing tablet was different. Even if the Tao Will sect's patriarch continued to refine it, he still needed to add various top-grade treasures of heaven and earth. Therefore, the speed of advancement was inevitably much slower than that of the Tao Will ranking. Naturally, its power was also much weaker than that of the Dao ranking. Speaking of which, the Dao ranking had vaguely sensed that Feng Qingshan was in danger. After all, Feng Qingshan's light from Providence was connected to him. In particular, after Feng Qingshan's cultivation broke through to the late-stage Divine Emperor, the timeless art broke through to the immortal realm, and his overall combat power reached the half-step Emperor realm. His connection with the Dao ranking was almost the same as Daoist Yi. However, because the Emperor realm's power was isolated from the timeless arc, it was somewhat ambiguous. In addition, he was currently suppressing the earth-shattering light from Providence. Therefore, Daoist he couldn't predict it at all. However, at this moment, the Emperor realm's power was broken. As the master of the timeless arc, Feng Qingshan naturally wouldn't be concealed by this power. Therefore, he instantly sensed the Dao ranking. Moreover, because he was the cause of this matter, helping him suppress the Xingyi Emperor would also completely suppress the light from Providence. Moreover, it could even bring him great benefits. Therefore, he felt as if he had already become the master of the Dao ranking. As long as he willed it, he could mobilize the Dao ranking. Of course, a feeling was just a feeling. The reason for this was because they had already become grasshoppers on the same rope. They were bound together for good or bad. The Dao ranking was a level 4 treasure. By using this treasure, Feng Qingshan naturally possessed true Emperor realm combat power. After all, it was said that Feng Qingshan was different from other peak divine emperors and half-step emperor realm. In the hands of others, a level 4 treasure could not display its power at all. Moreover, it wouldn't take long for them to be exhausted even if they weren't defeated. After all, that kind of consumption wasn't something an ordinary person could bear. Ordinary peak divine emperors might not even have the ability to mobilize a level 4 treasure. However, Feng Qingshan was different. First of all, his magic power was dense and pure, and ordinary people couldn't compare to it. Moreover, he had the timeless arc, the thunder-gathering tower, the Tower of Source, and the eternal pool of thunder. His power was more than 10 times that of other half-step Emperor realm experts. His recovery speed was also incomparable. Although he might not be able to fully exert the power of a level 4 treasure in his hands, as level 4 treasures were the standard for Emperor realm experts. Only in their hands could he exert its full power. However, he could at least exert 50% of its power. And 50% of its power was enough to suppress an emperor whose true spirit was on the verge of shattering. Come! With a thought, Feng Qingshan extended his hand. Buzz! There was a soft buzz. The next moment, in the Mud Pill Palace, the space in front of Feng Qingshan's true spirit suddenly protruded outwards and cracked open. Subsequently, at this moment, the Dao Insight rankings that were suppressing the karmic luck together with the sealing tablet, the Sect Master, Vice Sect Master, elders with real authority, and elite disciples, and played a main role seemed to have been summoned, and it tore through the sky with a swish and flew away. In an instant, the fortune that had gradually calmed down suddenly burst out like a mountain torrent and spread like a tide, completely becoming a wild horse out of control. The voices of Daoist E and the others, who were chanting the Dao scripture of the Dao sect, naturally came to an abrupt halt. At this moment, everyone's eyes were filled with horror. Compared to the change in the Dao sect, the fluctuation of fortune was even more terrifying. After all, as a level 4 treasure that was suppressing the Dao sect's fortune, it had actually flown away. Was it man-made? Did the Dao list fly away on its own? Or was it God's will? Or was there some other reason? Chapter 1642. If it was done by someone who did it in the dark and hit the vital point with one blow. To be able to control the Dao sect's treasure, it was obviously impossible to rely on outsiders alone. There must be a mole, and the identity of this mole must be in the upper echelons. Because if it was not the upper echelons, it would be impossible to do all this. With a mole, there would be internal and external troubles. After taking away the Dao list, would they also take away the sealing tablet in the next moment? Would the Dao sect's mountain protecting array also be broken? Would the various trump cards lose their effect? Suspicions arose. Everyone was anxious. It was not good to suspect anyone. It was impossible to have any results in a short period of time if they investigated. And if they delayed, even if they found anything, it would be useless. The most important thing was that there would be no trust between them. They had not figured out who the enemy was, and they were already in a mess. It was even more impossible not to investigate. The thought of a poisonous snake secretly preparing to give you a fatal blow was like a fishbone in your throat. If it was heaven's will, what was heaven's will? Was it fated to have this calamity, or did someone in the Tao Will sect do something that angered the heavens and people, or was there another reason? As for the Tao Will list flying away, what was it for? Did they not want to stay in the Tao Will sect anymore? Or did they have to leave for something? Or there were all sorts of things like this. However, no one thought that it was Fong Qing Shan who summoned it away. It was not that they did not think of it, but they did not think in this direction. After all, Fong Qing Shan was still in closed-door cultivation. Who would have thought that he could still cause trouble when he was in closed-door cultivation? First, it was the fluctuation of providence, followed by the Tao Will list flying away. Subconsciously, everyone began to think of schemes and conspiracies. Actually, this was not wrong. It was just that the cause and effect were reversed. Putting these aside, at this moment, everyone's heart sank to the bottom of the valley. Truly, when it rains, it pours, it pours. The ship is late, and the wind hits the head. Misfortune never comes alone. No matter what the reason was for the Tao Will list flying away, it was a heavy blow to everyone. If the Tao Will list flying away was caused by someone, then the Tao Will sect was really in danger at this moment. Without this treasure, the Tao Will sect's strength was instantly weakened by 30%. There was a strong enemy outside, and there was a spy inside. He was in imminent danger. However, at this moment, they didn't have the time to grieve. They didn't have the time to ferret out the traitor. They didn't have the time to consider anything else. Because the Tao Will list had flown away, but the karmic luck still had to be suppressed. At this time, if the destiny was not suppressed, not to mention external enemies, the first thing that would happen would be chaos, and the situation would be out of control. Therefore, Taoist EE and the others could only suppress the shock and confusion in their hearts and continue to activate the sealing tablet to suppress the karmic luck. In order to prevent any accidents, they had even activated the Tao Will sect's Great Mountain Guarding Formation, Boundless Ocean Formation, Mountain River Formation, and 3,000 Great Tao Formations. The Tao Will sect had a mountain guarding array, which was the same as the Heaven, Earth, and Man array in the Desolation sect. 33 Celestial Formation, Reincarnation Blood Sea Formation, Earth Pentagonal Formation. 3 formations, 3 talents. In the Tao chaotic world, it became the Boundless Ocean Array, the Mountain River Array, and the 3,000 Great Tao Array. In the Tao Will sect, the outer sect resided on the ground, the inner sect resided in the sea, and the true disciples resided in the sky. The cities on the earth, the islands in the ocean, the stars in the sky. This method was not done casually, but by using the disciples and the terrain to form the array. They were arranged according to a certain pattern, which was a huge square formation. The cities of the outer sect disciples formed the Mountain River Array, the islands of the inner sect disciples formed the Boundless Ocean Array, and the stars of the true disciples formed the 3,000 Great Tao Array. The 3,000 Great Tao Array was a peak level 3 array. Once it was activated, it might even be able to fight against a level 4 Emperor Venerable. The Boundless Ocean Array and the Mountain River Array were level 3 high grade and lower grade respectively. The 3 arrays were connected to each other and formed a 3-talent array. It was barely a level 4 formation. Even if an Emperor Venerable attacked, it might not be impossible to suppress them, let alone stop them. This was also the Tao Will sect's strongest trump card apart from the 2 level 4 Supreme Treasures. When the Tao Will sect retreated and returned to the ancestral land, why didn't the others pursue them? Didn't they know that if a snake was not killed, it would be punished? Apart from other reasons, this array was also the key. After activating the array, everyone couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. Fortunately, there were no problems with the array. Moreover, these arrays could not only defend against external enemies, but they could also suppress fate. Although they weren't as specialized as the Tao will list, at least there wouldn't be a problem in the short term. They could stabilize the situation. They could free up their hands to clean up the mess. Now, they had to consider why the Tao will list had flown away and find it as soon as possible. Putting all this aside, in the timeless arc, inside Feng Qingshan's Niwen Palace, as he summoned it, the space in front of his true spirit opened like a curtain, revealing a vortex. Then endless divine light poured out from the outside, like the Milky Way bursting its banks majestically. In the space, there was a deluge of heavenly flowers, conches, and heavenly sounds. In a flash, the crack in the vortex grew bigger and bigger. In a split second, the Tao will list descended. This wasn't the manifestation of a clone, nor was it a projection, but the arrival of the real body. The moment the list appeared, an aura naturally covered the entire Niwen Palace. No matter which area or corner of the Niwen Palace it was, one could feel the vastness and unfathomability of the aura. Even before the Xingyi Great Emperor's attack landed, and before the Tao will list attacked, just the aura alone had already made him fluctuate. Even Feng Qingshan's Niwen Palace was a little overwhelmed, and it let out a stiff sound. In the end, Feng Qingshan didn't refine this treasure, and he was just borrowing it. Fortunately, compared to this change, dealing with the crisis was clearly more important. In addition to the Tao will list, the Tao will child also consciously restrained his divine power. Therefore, there weren't too many problems in the Niwen Palace. The Tao will list was worthy of being the Tao will sex treasure. It was ranked as an upper-grade level 4 treasure, and even compared to the Xingyi Great Emperor's treasure in the past, it was not much inferior. Its whole body was shining with golden light, and was brimming with endless Tao will. At first glance, it made people feel like they had fallen into an endless sea of Tao will. If they saw this scene in another place, they might feel happy. After all, looking at these Tao wills was like looking at endless great ways, and it was very beneficial for improving one's cultivation level. Damn it! However, for the Xingyi Great Emperor, this was the worst possible change. Previously, when he saw Feng Qingshan use the one qi turning Sanqing and the Sanqing unification, the Xingyi Great Emperor didn't care about it. Later, when he used the timeless arc, the all-heaven chessboard, and the reincarnation mirror, he couldn't help but feel worried. Fortunately, he didn't break through to the venerable emperor level, which made him feel relieved. However, he didn't expect that he would feel relieved too early. Chapter 1643. It was still the same thing. Plans couldn't keep up with changes. Emperor Xingyi was only thinking that Feng Qingshan was only a half-step emperor. Even though his essence, qi, and spirit had been transformed, and he had emperor-level power, his true spirit was broken, and he was not as strong as before. However, a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. Emperor Xingyi could easily deal with Yi Futian using his divine abilities and secret techniques. However, he had never thought that Feng Qingshan could summon the Tao will sex ultimate treasure, the Tao will list. This treasure wasn't purely an offensive treasure. In terms of attack, it couldn't compare to other treasures of the same level. But no matter what, the other party's rank was there for all to see. It was a level 4 treasure, and an upper grade one at that. As soon as it appeared, it emitted endless majesty. It was like Tao power. On the Tao Insight rankings, numerous profound markings crisscrossed to form numerous strange diagrams. There was a divine fire that set the plains ablaze, and a myriad of flames that burned the heavens and the earth. There was a battle prowess that was invincible. There was a sword that cut through the way, and there was nothing else other than the sword. Endless Tao wills gathered together. And the most important thing was that in the middle of all these Tao wills, there was a Tao will that the Xingyi Emperor was very familiar with. It was a Tao will that emitted a purple gold light, and it was like a god, the king of Tao wills, sitting in the middle. All the Tao wills gathered together, emitting an ancient and heavy aura that seemed to be able to suppress the heavens and earth. Although he had suppressed the Tao wills with ease. But that was under the premise that his true spirit hadn't been broken, and he had paid a price. Most importantly, the Tao wills that Fang Qingshan had used before only had the power of one attack. The Emperor Tao wills here obviously couldn't be like that. How is this possible? How is this possible? Emperor Xingyi was confused. He couldn't figure out how Fang Qingshan could summon the Tao will list. If he could, why didn't he use it before? Why did he feel despair after the Emperor Tao will divine ability was broken? Is this all to make me lower my guard? Emperor Xingyi was an emperor and had used a high-grade level 4 treasure. It was precisely because of this that he was able to experience the power of such a treasure the most. At the same time, he understood the power of the life divine ability. It was precisely because he understood that he was in despair. Why was it so difficult to possess a late-stage God Emperor? It was full of twists and turns. Every time he saw that he was about to succeed, he would be hit in the head with a stick. It would have been fine if it had been anyone else, but if it had been any other time, even if it had been when he had just appeared and his true spirit had yet to shatter, he would not have been so fearful. But at this moment, he had been seriously injured, and his Tao injury had backlashed, while Fang Qingshan had reached the half-step Emperor realm. Especially with the power of the Timeless Arc, it could completely exert a part of the power of a level 4 Supreme artifact. Under such circumstances, the situation was extremely disadvantageous to him. Unfortunately, the arrow was already on the bowstring and had to be released. He had no other way out. Even at this moment, he could not give up on the possession and leave Fang Qingshan's Naiwan Palace. This was because, in his current state, once he left Fang Qingshan's Naiwan Palace and lost the law of amplification, not to mention the subsequent attacks, even if he managed to survive, there was no hope for him. First was the Tao injury. Without the eternal blessing, it was almost impossible to be healed, especially when his true spirit was shattered. Then there was the foundation. With the law of amplification, he might be able to achieve Tao integration in the future. Without the law of amplification, even if he cultivated to his original level, he could not cut the Tao again, because it was no different from seeking death. After all, he could not do it twice, and twice but not thrice. Although he had been reborn, his true spirit was still the same true spirit. The previous act of cutting the Tao had already been recorded in a small notebook by the great Tao. If he wanted to do it again, there was no need for him to swear any fate oath. The great Tao could directly make him doubt his life. Moreover, he had seen Fang Qingshan's foundation, which could not only help him heal his injuries, but also help him climb the great Tao. How could he be willing to give it up? Wealth came from danger. Benefits could move people's hearts. More than 50% of benefits was enough to make people do something that would risk universal condemnation, not to mention this matter related to the great Tao. Moreover, even if he was willing to give it up, he had to see if Fang Qingshan was willing to let him go. If there was a grudge, there was a grudge. If a snake was not killed, it would be punished. This time, he had taken over Fang Qingshan's body. It could be said that he had formed an irreconcilable enmity with him. Between the two of them, one had to die to end this situation. Even if one of them won and one of them escaped, it would not be considered perfect. In the future, it would become a demonic barrier. Therefore, when two people met on a narrow path, the braver one would win. At this moment, he could only fight with his life on the line. Fight! The Xingyi Great Emperor shouted. With a thought, the Emperor-level source power and the elephant Great Tao transformed into a sharp blade in the air. Cut the Tao, cut, cut, cut! As soon as the Xingyi Great Emperor's voice fell. However, the elephant-shaped sword formed by the great path gently waved, and a white sword light lit up, like a sudden flash of lightning in the clear sky, like the first ray of light in the darkness. With a flash of the sword light, anything that stood in his way was swept clean. Following that, a strange phenomenon appeared. A silhouette that was similar to the Xingyi Great Emperor stood in the air. Above his head was the boundless Great Tao. At a certain moment, he stood up, and unsheathed his sword. With a swing of his sword, the great Tao was severed. To cut the Tao, this was not the Xingyi Great Emperor's specialty. Instead, it was an ultimate technique that he had comprehended while recovering from the great Tao's backlash and injuries after his death. The origin of this ultimate technique was his comprehension of the amplification Great Tao. This was the cut the Tao in name. As the sword fell, it emitted a terrifying aura and an unprecedented sharpness. It seemed like there was nothing it could not cut. However, it was different from Mosquito Doran's Flood Dragon Mosquito Sting. First, Mosquito Doran's Flood Dragon Mosquito Sting was really able to cut through everything. Even if his opponent's grade was much higher than his, he could still defeat a stronger opponent. The only difference was how much he could cut through and whether he could digest it or not. It was like when he had just been born and swallowed a 12th grade golden lotus. He was only a golden immortal, but he still broke through the 3rd grade golden lotus. Unfortunately, he couldn't digest it, or rather, he needed more time to digest it. Unfortunately, he was born at the wrong time and met Fang Qingshan. Although the Xingyi Great Emperor's cut the Tao was also able to cut through everything, he had only perfected this ultimate technique and hadn't tested it yet. Most importantly, his opponent's cultivation level couldn't be too much higher than his. For example, he could cut the amplification Great Tao, the Xingyi Great Tao, and the Shadow Great Tao, but he couldn't cut the 5 elements Great Tao, the Yin-Yang Great Tao, the Space-Time Great Tao, and the Destiny Great Tao. Even so, this ultimate technique was already very impressive. Chapter 1644. The Way Cutting Skill. The Way Cutting Skill. This was an existence that specialized in cutting the great ways. In all heavens, the emperor level was supreme. If there was an existence that was above venerable emperors, it would be the origin great ways of all heavens. Therefore, when those venerable emperors had no hope of breaking through and could not find a way to leave all heavens and realms to trace the origin of chaos, the only way to continue to improve their cultivation was to integrate with the way. Hadn't the Xingyi Emperor done the same before? Although this way-cutting skill was a unique skill that he had just created, it was not inferior to his previous natal theurgy, unique secret method, and level 4 supreme treasures. In terms of concept, it was obvious which one was superior. After all, the great ways were above venerable emperors, and this way-cutting skill could cut the great ways. In terms of sharpness alone, even the level 4 supreme treasure, the Emperor's Saber, could not compete with it. As the sword fell, Fang Qingshan's real spirit and Mud Pill Palace seemed to make a cracking sound. A feeling that it was about to be torn suddenly surged into his heart. A mysterious concept spread out from the sword's edge. Everything in the surroundings seemed to slow down. It was as if even time and space had been affected. Time stopped and space stagnated. It seemed that the only thing that could move in the whole world was the Xingyi Emperor's sword. An invincible sword. Of course, this sword did not involve the way of time and space. The reason why it seemed to affect time and space and free space and time was that one could only watch the sword light fall like a prisoner on the guillotine. But the real reason was that it only affected the Taoist heart. It was only because his Tao heart and willpower had been intimidated that his nerves could not react. It was as if his expression had been frozen. When the sword descended, it did not just slash at the cultivation base, physique, great Tao, and laws. These were all real existences, but it also targeted at the primordial spirit, soul, true spirit, Tao heart, will. These were existences that seemed somewhat illusory and idealistic. The way-cutting skill not only cut the great ways, but also the Taoist heart, consciousness, and will. This was actually similar to the primordial Chaos Golden Dipper. However, the primordial Chaos Golden Dipper was a shortened version. Obviously, it could not be compared with it, because the primordial Chaos Golden Dipper only cut the Dharma power and cultivation. The realm was still there. As long as there were enough resources, it could be restored very quickly. On the other hand, the Tao severance technique was different. Once one was struck by it, not to mention the damage one would suffer, one's cultivation would be severed along with it. If one wanted to repair it in the future, it wouldn't just be a problem of resources, and one would have to start all over again. Moreover, not only would one not receive any experience, the difficulty would increase by a few times. In other words, even if this ultimate technique wasn't used to take one's life, it was still used to sever one's Tao, and it was extremely vicious. Facing this sword, Fang Qingshan could not help but feel horrified, because under the bright sword light, he felt as if all the defenses around him did not exist. Even the eternal heavenly vessel could not protect him. It was as if everything about him was exposed to this sword. Just like his true spirit, he could only face it head-on. Cutting. Feeling. Fong Fong. Fong intent feeling. Qing Fong Fong. He felt was, sense of sense was be. Fong Fong's sense felt. Of course, a feeling was just a feeling. This Tao severance technique was extraordinary indeed. If Fang Qingshan was unable to summon the Tao Insight rankings and didn't possess this grade 4 precious treasure, then when facing this sword strike, the final outcome would really be hard to say. This was because he himself was only a dabbler in Emperor-level power. Although the Timeless Arc was strong, it could not break this rule. That is, unless the Timeless Arc ascends to the Ancient Eon stage. But right now, it was still a long way off. Since the Tao severance technique could sever the amplification Tao, it could naturally sever the protection of the Timeless Arkansas. But with the Tao ranking, it was completely different. Although this treasure wasn't purely an offensive or defensive treasure, its quality was still there. The Tao severance art was formidable indeed. If it was when the Qing Imperial Emperor was at his prime, then even with the protection of the Tao intent rankings, it would probably be difficult for Fang Qingshan to escape death. However, it was a pity that a fallen phoenix was inferior to a chicken. Moreover, the Tao Insight ranking wasn't as simple as a grade 4 precious treasure. There was a Tao Insight world within it, and an Emperor-level Tao Insight was hidden within the Tao Insight world. It was equivalent to the Tao Intent Sex Patriarch's natal law. Therefore, Fang Qingshan forcibly threw the feeling of retreating to the back of his mind and did not retreat at all from the sword that was about to fall. Blessings and misfortunes depended on each other, and misfortunes lurked within blessings. Although this sword brought him danger, it could also be said to be a fortuitous opportunity. Of course, to turn danger into fortuitous opportunity, the prerequisite was that one had to first survive. Fortunately, Fang Qingshan had the Tao Insight ranking. This sword wouldn't take his life. Instead, it would become a stepping stone to sharpen his will. Disciple invites Patriarch to appear and kill the enemy. Fang Qingshan shouted. Following that, his own magic power, the eternal lightning pool, the thunder-gathering pagoda, and the origin pagoda in the Timeless Arc all erupted. Boundless magic power flowed into the Tao Insight, ranking like rivers returning to the sea. Of course, the most important thing was that Fang Qingshan had previously possessed a separated Emperor-level Tao Insight. Although it had already been used, its aura was still there. With this as a guide, he instantly triggered the Emperor-level Tao Insight. In an instant, only a dazzling purple-gold divine light could be seen exploding. Following that, the Tao Insight ranking grew at a speed visible to the naked eye. It turned into a sky screen that covered the entire Niwen Palace. Then, in that boundless world of will, the Emperor-level will of the Great Path that sat on the purple-gold lotus was activated. It was as if the wind couldn't move it at all. In a flash, a familiar and imposing figure appeared in front of the Tao Insight ranking. His feet stepped on the heavens, and his body was covered with countless stars. He had curly black hair, a strong body, and a slender figure. Just by standing there, he was like the Great Path itself. One look at him would make one feel as if they were about to be sealed and suppressed. The Tao Insight Sex Patriarch. Unfortunately, compared to the Patriarch that Fang Qingshan saw in the Tao Insight world last time, there wasn't much difference. The only thing missing was a trace of charm. In other words, the current Emperor-level Tao Insight was no longer a clone of the Tao Insight Sex Patriarch. The Tao Insight Sex Patriarch could be considered to have been completely obliterated in the torrent of history. Now, only a Tao Insight existed in the world. However, this didn't affect the power of the Tao inside itself. Seal the heavens and lock the earth, suppress. As soon as he finished speaking, the Tao inside Sek's patriarch didn't make any unnecessary movements. He merely raised his arms slightly and instantly turned into a stone tablet that descended from the sky. This stone tablet was exactly the same as the fourth-level treasure sealing tablet outside. It was simply carved from the same mold, and its power was similar as well. Those who didn't know would think that the sealing tablet outside had also been summoned in. However, compared to the sealing tablet outside, this Tao Insight tablet wasn't broken. Instead, it seemed to be made of glazed jade and overflowed with the aura of the vicissitudes of time. Chapter 1645. Bang! The stone monument descended and collided with the Xingyi Heavenly Emperor's elephant great Tao and severing Tao art. That scene was like a collision between the heavens and earth. With the point of collision as the center, it was like a black hole as boundless shockwaves spread out in all directions. Rumble! An earth-shattering sound was heard, as if the knell of doomsday had been rung. Although the scene was in Fangqing Shan's Niwen Palace, there was still the timeless arc and the Tao Sanctum's protective array outside. However, the sound of the collision was not covered at all. At this moment, all living beings in the Tao chaotic world felt a buzz in their heads, and they could not react for a long time. Furthermore, at this moment, following the collision between the Tao severing sword and the sealing tablet, the battlefield in Fangqing Shan's body erupted with astonishing power. The severing will and the sealing will turned into two rays of divine light that intertwined with each other, exchanging blows. It was truly a case of meeting one's match and meeting a talented general. Both of them were evenly matched. However, it was precisely because of this evenly matched collision that the scene was particularly intense. Every time the two rays of divine light intertwined, they collided solidly. The sound produced was like metal, and the sound waves vibrated as if they were going to shatter the surrounding space. Fortunately, Fangqing Shan had long expected this situation. At the same time, because he had the Emperor-level Tao intent, he did not have to worry about the attack, so he did not need to use the Tao while ranking at all. Moreover, this treasure was related to the Tao while Sek's fate, so it was not good to use it to fight head-on. Therefore, when he activated the Emperor-level Tao intent, Fangqing Shan did not immediately smash the Tao while ranking over. Firstly, he felt that the Emperor-level Tao intent alone was enough. Secondly, he was afraid that if he was injured, he would let the Tao will Sek down. Of course, most importantly, he was afraid that the mortals would suffer when the immortals fought. Therefore, he directly turned the Tao while ranking into a shield that enveloped the entire Niwen Palace and protected it. As expected, with this defense at this moment, the aftermath of the collision was forcibly blocked by the Tao while ranking. Not only did it not harm the Niwen Palace, but it also did not pose any threat to the ranking. Let's talk about the Xingyi Martial Emperor's Tao severance technique and the Emperor-level Tao intent that Fangqing Shan activated. As he had imagined, the Emperor-level Tao would be like a hot knife through butter, or the Xingyi Emperor's Tao severing art would be able to cut through anything. When the two collided, a scene of equal strength appeared. In the end, no matter if it was an Emperor-level Tao insight or Tao severance technique, both of them were extraordinary. All of them were their trump cards. The Tao severing art was the essence of the Xingyi Monarch's Tao. Just this secret art alone was not weaker than a grade 4 killing treasure. The Emperor-level Tao intent was also the final gift that the Tao will Sek's patriarch had left for the Tao will sect. Logically speaking, the Xingyi Martial Emperor's techniques should be more powerful. After all, the Xingyi Martial Emperor was a peak sovereign venerable, and his Tao cutting technique was even more lofty. However, who told him to be like a dragon in the shallows, a tiger in the plains? The Tao severing art was indeed powerful, but his true spirit was shattered, so he couldn't fully display its power. As such, the two sides were naturally in a deadlock. Let's not talk about Fangqing Shan. Outside, With the activation of the Dao Will Sec's 3 mountain protecting arrays, the Dao Will Sec's mountain protecting arrays were also activated. The situation had finally taken a turn for the better. Of course, the most important thing was that Taoist EE and the others discovered that the departure of the Dao Will List did not cause as much violence as they had expected, except for the initial reversal of providence. Obviously, although the Dao Will List had left, it was still suppressing the providence. Everyone was puzzled by this, and they did not know the exact reason behind it. However, this situation was obviously much better than the conspiracy they had previously guessed, whether in terms of crisis or loss. Most importantly, before they could investigate the situation, then a familiar, majestic aura erupted from Feng Qingshan's dojo. It was the manifestation of the Patriarch's Tao intent being activated. Then, the manifestation of the sealing Great Path and the sealing tablet was instantly revealed. I see. Xing, Martial Emperor? Peak Sovereign Venerable? Possession? That was close. Fortunately, it was Feng Qingshan. Otherwise, I'm afraid he would have succeeded. Damn it. Everyone, let's attack together and help Feng Qingshan. Yes. As soon as he finished speaking, the sealing tablet, which had been activated to suppress providence, suddenly changed direction and fell towards Samsara Star. After understanding the ins and outs of the matter, Taoist EE and the others were both shocked and relieved. Naturally, they were shocked because of the existence of the Xingyi Martial Emperor. They didn't expect that there was such a giant hidden in the Dao Will Sec's secret vault. Moreover, this giant was full of malice towards the Dao Will Sect. He wanted to seize the Dao Will Sec's future and devour everything of the Dao Will Sect. Fortunately, he was attacking Feng Qingshan, and Feng Qingshan's cultivation had experienced a leap not long ago. Otherwise, thinking of the other consequences, everyone couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. Obviously, if the Xingyi Martial Emperor succeeded, not to mention Feng Qingshan and the Dao Will Sect, even they wouldn't have the slightest chance of surviving. Therefore, in the face of such a person, even if he was a peak emperor, they would instantly cast aside their fear and unite against a common enemy, wanting to lend Feng Qingshan a hand. In the next moment, Feng Qingshan's Naiwan Palace seemed to completely ignore the defense of the Dao Will List. Suddenly, another stone tablet appeared. The two sealing tablets met like a golden wind and jade dew, surpassing countless things in the mortal world. They instantly merged into one. In an instant, the immeasurable sealing source erupted. Those who didn't know would think that the great way of sealing had descended and manifested. The stone tablet was dyed extremely magical, and it began to expand at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, it had exceeded 3 to 5 times its original size. Sealing, both sealing and suppressing. Clang, clang. In the next moment, the Dao severing sword let out a cry and showed signs of disappearing. Impossible! The Xingyi Heavenly Emperor roared. At this moment, he looked incomparably miserable. The Dao severing sword had been broken, and the backlash from his innate technique had caused him to be severely injured. Now, he could no longer suppress his injuries. He was like a volcano erupting. Even if Feng Qingshan didn't act against him and allowed him to fend for himself, it wouldn't take long for him to self-destruct. The Xingyi Martial Emperor couldn't believe this at all. Who was he? He was the Xingyi Martial Emperor, a peak sovereign. He stood at the top of the infinite void pyramid, and he was the first person to break through the shackles and trace back to the world. How could he be defeated here? How could he be defeated by Feng Qingshan, who wasn't even a sovereign? However, regardless of whether he believed it or not, it was the truth. With the addition of the sealing tablet, a level 4 supreme treasure, it was like the straw that broke the camel's back. The two divine tablets merged into one, instantly giving him an overwhelming advantage. The Dao severing sword was broken, the source's power collapsed, and the real spirit was being destroyed. This change naturally caused the Xingyi Martial Emperor to panic. Chapter 1646. It was an Emperor-level Tao intent combined with a level 4 supreme treasure. This was equivalent to the explosive attack of the Tao Will Sek's great ancestor. Not to mention the current Xingyi martial emperor. Even if he was at his peak, he would not dare to underestimate this attack. In the beginning, he couldn't believe his eyes when facing such an attack. However, as his true spirit was destroyed, this disbelief turned into fear. No. The Xingyi martial emperor roared and used all his strength to resist, but he found that he could not stop it because his strength was no longer at his peak. Even if he wanted to self-destruct, he could not do it now. Because of the previous Tao injury, Mosquito Doran's pierced true spirit, and the full force attack of the Emperor-level Tao intent and the level 4 supreme treasure, he did not even have the strength to struggle, let alone self-destruct. Stop. Stop. Although he had been through countless dangerous situations, and it was common for him to return from the brink of death, he was still able to do so. Previously, his true spirit was destroyed, and his foundation was damaged. If he did not succeed in possessing Fang Qingshan, even if he survived, he would not have a future. He did not even care about recovering to his peak state. However, when death came, the Xingyi martial emperor realized that death was not a joke. When faced with such a situation, all expectations were in vain. It was better to live than to die. Only by living could there be hope, and death would be the end of everything. Although he might have been indifferent to life and death in the past, after becoming a peak emperor, he had long forgotten the scene of life and death. However, after becoming a peak emperor, so many years had passed, and he had long since forgotten the feeling of risking his life to come back to life, as well as the feeling of seeing through life and death. Before entering the pass, they were invincible among the white waters and black mountains. Before entering the pass, they were invincible among the white waters and black mountains. But after conquering the country and settling down, who could still be as brave as before? At this moment, as the divine steel pressed down, a sense of disaster enveloped him. Fear! Fear! It poured out like a mountain torrent. It was the same feeling he had when he cut off the amplification great path, suffered a backlash, and finally fell into the hands of the Tao Will Sek's great ancestor. No, stop. I'm begging you, stop. The Xingyi heavenly emperor was terrified to the extreme. He didn't want to die. He wanted to borrow this body to be reborn and ascend to the peak of the great Tao, transcending the void. At this moment, he had long since forgotten about face. He had forgotten that he and Fang Qingshan were already irreconcilable enemies. He had forgotten that he only wanted to live. At this moment, if one did not sense the source of the Xingyi emperor's aura, no one would have thought that he was a peak venerable emperor who had once stood at the top of the pyramid of all heavens, let alone his identity. Indeed, the difference was like the difference between heaven and earth. Didn't they say that they would rather die in glory than live in disgrace? Didn't they say that they would rather die standing than live kneeling? The Xingyi emperor's actions had shattered all of Fang Qingshan's fantasies about being a venerable sovereign. It turned out that venerable sovereigns could also be afraid of death, surrender, and beg for mercy. However, Fang Qingshan was only surprised for a moment. He didn't look down on the Xingyi emperor because of this. After all, those who remained calm and unafraid in the face of death were few and far between. Many people weren't afraid because they wouldn't really die. After all, there was reincarnation. As long as their true spirit wasn't destroyed, they could start over again. It wouldn't even be difficult for them to recover their memories in the future. However, the Xingyi emperor's situation was different. Fang Qingshan definitely wouldn't let him go. Even if Fang Qingshan didn't intervene, the Xingyi emperor wouldn't be able to escape the fate of his true spirit being destroyed. This was equivalent to completely erasing all traces of him from all heavens and realms. Even if someone reversed time and space, they wouldn't be able to save him. Fang Qingshan also didn't know whether he would end up like the Xingyi emperor if he faced the same situation one day. He might even perform worse than the Xingyi emperor. He didn't dare to imagine such a scene. In order to avoid facing such a situation, he had to make himself stronger. Only then would he be able to remain calm and avoid danger no matter what situation he was in. The principal chaotic world. At this moment, the protective mountain formation was activated. All the disciples, including those who were cultivating in seclusion, appeared. Everyone circled around Fong Qingshan's samsara star. At this moment, everyone's eyes were fixed on Fong Qingshan's timeless Arkansas. Their expressions were filled with worry. They were worried about both Fong Qingshan and the Dao sect. They never thought that the Dao sect would have an old antique like the Xingyi Emperor. Moreover, he was eyeing the Dao sect covetously. This time, if it wasn't for Fong Qingshan's great improvement in cultivation, if it wasn't for the fact that he was targeting Fong Qingshan but everyone else present, just the thought of it was enough to make everyone shiver. This was because everyone present didn't have the slightest confidence in facing the Xingyi Emperor's possession. If Fong Qingshan was in a stalemate, he probably wouldn't even have the slightest chance to struggle. If the Xingyi Emperor successfully possessed the Dao sect, he would lie dormant for a while and subtly take control of the Dao sect. Perhaps everyone's hearts couldn't help but be shrouded by a thick cloud. Now, it was up to Fong Qingshan and the Xingyi Emperor to see who would last until the end. If Fong Qingshan could last until the end, it would naturally be a happy ending. The previous crisis would be resolved in an instant, and if Fong Qingshan devoured the Xingyi Emperor instead, he would really be able to break through to the Emperor Venerable Realm. This was 10 times or even 100 times better than swallowing the Emperor's stones. The Dao sect would naturally rise. Without waiting for Fong Qingshan to break through to the Emperor Venerable Realm, the Dao sect will be able to advance by leaps and bounds just by devouring the Xingyi Emperor's luck. This was the luck of a peak emperor. Even if he had fallen and wasn't as strong as before, a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. However, if the Xingyi Emperor won, the situation would be very bad. At that time, the Dao sect would really be in danger. It would be a life-and-death struggle. Even if the Xingyi Emperor had just successfully possessed the Xingyi Emperor, the Dao sect might not be able to bear the losses. The Dao sect might also fall because of this. As for the Xingyi Emperor, a man may not harm a tiger, but a tiger may hurt a man. If even the Dao list and the sealing tablet couldn't protect Fong Qingshan, then in the eyes of the Xingyi Emperor, the Dao sect would be a piece of juicy meat that he could easily obtain. How could he easily give up on this duck that was already in his mouth? In order not to face such a situation, or to reduce the probability of this happening, everyone didn't stay idle. Those who had the ability activated their magic power, while those who didn't chanted the Dao scripture of the Dao sect. Everyone was of one mind and united as they activated the sealing tablet to help Fong Qingshan. At the same time, they were also helping themselves. Chapter 1647. Heaven and Earth work together. In the end, Fong Qingshan's luck was at its peak. Although his luck might not be as much as that of the Xingyi Great Emperor, it was more stable. He already had the all-heaven chessboard and the timeless arc to protect his luck. Now that his cultivation level was getting higher, and he was being suppressed by the Dao Intent Sect's Path Intent list. Therefore, he was able to turn misfortune into fortune, even though he had failed to scheme against the Xingyi Great Emperor in the beginning. However, Mosquito Doran's thunderous attack had not only destroyed the Xingyi Great Emperor's true spirit, but had also destroyed the mental barrier in Fong Qingshan's heart. Then, in the face of the Xingyi Great Emperor's counterattack, he had summoned the Path Intent list and activated his Emperor-level Dao Intent. Although the Xingyi Great Emperor still had a trump card like the Dao Severing Technique, he also had the help of the Dao Intent Sect's people who were working together to activate the sealing tablet. The process was full of twists and turns, but in the end, Fong Qingshan was still more skilled. Therefore, at this moment, in the timeless arc, as the sealing tablet completely fell, the Xingyi Great Emperor's fate was naturally self-evident. If a snake was not killed, it would be punished. Fong Qingshan did not have the habit of letting the tiger return to the mountain. After the sealing tablet fell, he activated the Path Intent list the all-heaven chessboard, and the timeless arc to completely sweep through the Xingyi Great Emperor. After crushing him into pieces, he swallowed him. If the Xingyi Great Emperor's possession of Fang Qingshan was said to be overwhelming and invincible, then, even though Fang Qingshan now had an absolute advantage, he was still like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. He had indigestion. After all, he was an emperor, and a peak emperor at that. Moreover, even if he could digest it, Fang Qingshan could not do it at this time. After all, if he completely digested the Xingyi Great Emperor's origin energy, Fang Qingshan's cultivation level would definitely break through. This was not a good thing for him. This was equivalent to swallowing an Emperor's Stone. For some people, after swallowing an Emperor's Stone, they would naturally be able to break through to the Emperor realm. However, for some people, they had a higher goal and they would suppress this impulse. They wouldn't push the boat along with the current and would rely on their own efforts. Fang Qingshan was naturally the same. He did not completely refine the Xingyi Heavenly Emperor's origin true spirit. First, as mentioned before, in order to have a better foundation, he needed to wait until he was stronger before refining it. This way, he wouldn't be putting the cart before the horse. Then, refining it would also take time, and now is not the time for closed-door training. After all, he had caused such a huge commotion. Although it wasn't his intention, and he couldn't be blamed entirely, he still had to show up and explain himself. That aside, Fang Qingshan hadn't completely refined the Xingyi Emperor's essence. He had only refined a portion of it, and the rest was sealed in the timeless Ark's essence lightning pool. However, Fang Qingshan's cultivation still couldn't stop breaking through. At a certain moment, Fang Qingshan's body suddenly shook. Without any warning, a formless pressure swept out like a tidal wave. This aura only appeared for a moment before disappearing. However, there was still a supreme aura that was incomparably mysterious. The Tao chaotic world was filled with a deluge of heavenly flowers, thousands of golden lotuses, and purple chi that spanned billions of miles, penetrating through the entire chaos. The void was boundless in all directions. At this moment, the will of heaven and earth and all living beings in the Tao chaotic world couldn't help but feel a sense of joy. Even the great Tao laws of heaven and earth became unprecedentedly clear. Although this situation wasn't because Fang Qingshan's cultivation had broken through to the Emperor realm, he had only broken through from the late Divine Emperor to the peak Divine Emperor. However, because of the Xingyi Emperor's previous transformation, Fang Qingshan already had a physique that could bear the Emperor realm power and Emperor realm magic power. As long as he transformed the laws and Yuan Shun back and digested them, he could also possess the Emperor realm laws and Yuan Shun. It could be said that Fang Qingshan was currently an emperor who hadn't broken through to the Emperor realm. Although he wasn't comparable to an emperor, he was at least invincible among half-step emperors. Although half-step emperors weren't emperors, they at least had the word emperor in them. Therefore, he revealed a supreme aura that belonged to the Emperor realm previously. However, the aura didn't last long. As for the celebration from heaven and earth, it wasn't because of his cultivation breakthrough. Fang Qingshan's cultivation breakthrough was indeed worthy of celebration, but it wasn't of much help to the Tao Will Sect's overall improvement, at least before he truly broke through to the Emperor realm. However, because of this crisis, there can't be construction without destruction. Crisis was also an opportunity. After surviving this crisis, the Tao Will Sect naturally gained a lot. In particular, Fang Qingshan devoured the Xingyi Emperor, not only his laws, Yuan Shun, Yuan Shun, Yuan Shun, real spirit, but also his luck. Although the biggest benefit was obtained by Fang Qingshan, the Tao Will Sect also contributed a lot. Especially the last decisive factor was the Tao Will Sect's 2 level 4 supreme treasures. Therefore, the Tao Will Sect also obtained great benefits. The laws, essence, soul, dermic powers, and quintessential spirit naturally belonged to Fang Qingshan. However, the light from Providence was split between Fang Qingshan and the Tao Will Sect. In particular, The Tao list was originally a luck supreme treasure. As long as he had enough luck, he could rise infinitely, just like the heavenly chessboard. After surviving the crisis, Feng Qingshan's reverse nurturing, the Xingyi Emperor's luck, and so on, although he didn't break through the bottleneck and break through to the peak of level 4, after all, although it was only a small grade, the gap was still bigger than the peak Divine Emperor's breakthrough to Emperor Realm. Didn't you see that the Xingyi Emperor only had one high grade level 4 supreme treasure in his life? Didn't he want to refine it to the peak? It wasn't that he didn't want to, it was just that it was too difficult. However, it also allowed him to take a big step forward among the upper level 4 supreme treasures. In the future, when Feng Qingshan broke through to Emperor Realm and the Tao sect regained its former glory, the Tao list might be able to take advantage of the situation and break through to the peak of level 4. Whoosh! As Feng Qingshan completely survived the crisis, the 2 level 4 supreme treasures, the Tao list and the sealing tablet, eagerly flew out of Feng Qingshan's Naiwan Palace and then disappeared with a swoosh. The reason for this was naturally because Feng Qingshan hadn't refined these 2 supreme treasures yet. After all, he hadn't broken through to Emperor Realm, so his Naiwan Palace was relatively weak. With 2 top-grade supreme treasures in it, he was a little overwhelmed. Moreover, this time they successfully destroyed the Xingyi Emperor, and both of them had gained a lot, so they were busy going back to digest it. Not to mention the gains of the Tao list. With luck, he had everything. The sealing tablet's gains were actually very easy to understand. Its ability was to seal and suppress everything. The more it sealed, the more it suppressed, and the more powerful the target it sealed or suppressed, the corresponding power of the sealing tablet would also increase. This time, it suppressed the Xingyi Emperor, who was a top-grade great emperor, so the sealing tablet naturally gained a lot of benefits. Chapter 1648. Generally speaking, there were 2 traditional ways to upgrade a treasure. The first was to rely on people to continuously refine it with their powers. However, this method was only suitable for natal spiritual treasures. Ordinary treasures did not have this kind of foundation and potential. The second method was to use the refining method to continuously add top-grade refining materials and refine it continuously. However, there were some treasures that had different ways of upgrading. For example, Feng Qingshan's All Heavens chessboard, the Tao sect's Tao list, the Jiangshan hand, the Great Qian Empire's People's Umbrella, and the 4 Seas 8 Desolation sword, etc. These treasures were all karmic treasures. They did not need other materials or people to refine them. As long as there was karmic luck, they could continue to transform themselves, just like how humans cultivated. Apart from the karmic treasures, the martial pinnacle sect's Emperor Slayer saber that Feng Qingshan had encountered in the Fallen Dragon mysterious realm was the same. However, what he needed was not karmic luck, but murderous chi. However, ordinary murderous chi obviously did not have this effect. It could be seen from the name of the treasure that it wanted to have an obvious effect on him. Emperor Slayer, Emperor Slayer. Naturally, the Emperor Slayer saber would only improve by leaps and bounds when it killed an emperor. Every time it killed an emperor, its power would change qualitatively. It was the same. It was the same for the sealing tablet. However, what he needed was neither karmic luck nor murderous chi. He needed the power of sealing and suppression. This time, suppressing the Xingyi Emperor was like killing an emperor with the Emperor Slayer saber. The sealing tablet naturally benefited a lot. Although he did not get the credit alone, he was the one who completed the last step, so the effect was not bad. In addition, he did not get a share of the karmic luck and other benefits, so he was compensated in other aspects. This was different from other low-level treasures. These gains were similar to the Tao list. Although it would not allow the sealing tablet to break through, it could at least repair the damage it had suffered in the past. Once the damage was repaired, its power would naturally increase. These benefits could be seen and felt. No, as the last bit of the Xingyi Emperor's consciousness dissipated, all that was left was a resentful, unwilling, and regretful voice that resounded throughout the Tao chaotic world. All right, Upon hearing the voice of despair and sensing the emptiness of the sealing tablet, everyone from the Tao sect was overjoyed. After all, this meant that they had survived a life and death crisis. The most important thing was that they had killed a venerable sovereign. Although this venerable sovereign was weak, no matter how weak he was still a venerable sovereign, and everyone had participated in it. However, his body immediately felt empty, as if it had been hollowed out. Even an existence like Taoist, almost stumbled and fell to the ground. After all, in order to help Fang Qingshan, and also to help themselves, they had given it their all and even unleashed their potential to activate the suppressing tablet of the ceiling. The consumption was simply too great. In the next moment, the entire boundless void and all the worlds in the universe began to tremble. First was a wave of heart-wrenching sobs. Her sobs were like resentment, admiration, weeping, complaining, and lingering in the air. Anyone who heard it would cry, and anyone who heard it would grieve. Clang, clang, clang. Following that, the death knell was tolled once more. 99 times, 81 times, one after another. Then, a rain of blood fell from the sky, pouring down in buckets. At this moment, the entire all heavens was enveloped by an extremely dense sorrow. The commotion was so great that everyone in the boundless void and all the worlds in the universe could feel it. Even the endless abyss and the river of space and time were no exception. Last time, Chang Lushui, a peak divine emperor, had died. Even heaven and earth mourned for his death. Although the commotion hadn't been as great or widespread, the difference between a peak divine emperor and a peak venerable sovereign was self-evident. Actually, this little bit of movement was considered small. Great Emperor Xingyi was a venerable sovereign, and a peak one at that. However, he was no longer the great Emperor Xingyi of the past. Although his cultivation level and Tao immortal realm were still there, his strength was less than a tenth of what it used to be. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been afraid of the Tao sect's ancestor, the suppressing tablet of the ceiling, and Fang Qingshan's counterattack in the end. Even so, a starving camel was still bigger than a horse, and a single strand of hair was thicker than a leg. The commotion caused by his complete death was far greater than the death of a peak venerable sovereign like Chang Lushui. Even though he defended the origin of heaven and earth and lost his fortune, the dead were still the most important. Therefore, heaven and earth wept for his death. That wasn't all. Apart from the mourning cries, howls, and rain of blood, there was an even greater commotion. With the great Emperor Xingyi's death, a great Tao that ran through most of the boundless void and encompassed all realms had manifested. It was even stronger than the amplification Tao in Fang Qingshan's hands. On it, a 9-clawed golden dragon sword, a Herculean bull demon roared, a demonic ape of chaos battled the heavens, and a world-devouring divine hound destroyed chaotic realms. Seeing this, it was obvious that the origins of this grand Tao were clear. The Xingyi Great Tao, the great emperor Xingyi's natal great Tao. This wasn't to say that the great emperor Xingyi's natal great Tao was stronger than the amplification Tao. It was hard to say which of them was stronger. However, because the Xingyi Great Tao was complete and the amplification Tao in Fang Qingshan's hands was only a section, the Xingyi Great Tao seemed stronger. However, no matter how strong it was, the Xingyi Great Tao, which was originally indestructible and indomitable, had reached the end of its days. Crack, crack! However, a series of crisp sounds could be heard, following which the grand Tao collapsed with a loud bang. Woo, 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 woo. Cries of sorrow appeared out of nowhere in the void. Rumble. In the next moment, countless original great Taos appeared in the void. Every single one of them was not weaker than the great Emperor Xingyi's natal great Tao. The might of the great Tao descended like a prison. There were wind, rain, lightning, floods, tornadoes, the sun, the moon, and the stars. Since ancient times, up and down, reincarnation, life and death, fate, cause and effect, yin and yang, the 5 elements, the 9 palaces, the 8 trigrams, thousands of heavenly pillars of the great Tao gathered together. They stood tall for eternity and were indestructible. Countless laws of the great Tao gathered and released an endless amount of light. Whoosh! It was to the extent where, in the end, within the boundless great Tao source, an indescribable, enormous divine eye appeared, opening on its own. This eye was cold and emotionless. It didn't seem to have any emotions. However, when it saw the shattered Xingyi great Tao, it couldn't help but reveal a sense of sorrow and pity. These were the original great Taos and the will of the great Tao in the boundless void. They were also sending off the Xingyi great Tao and the Xingyi great Tao. The dead were the most important. Even though the Xingyi great Tao was hated by the heavens and the earth, now that he was dead, everything was in the past. Now, all that was left was the regret and pity of the Emperor's death and the shattering of the great Tao. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.